following is the unedited 3-hour Q&A that took place during the investor meeting with Microvision's Sumit Sharma and Anubhav Verma on April 14th, 2023 in Redmond, Washington. There was one point where I got up and walked to the back of the room to get a sandwich, but I kept recording the whole time. So if there's a little dip in the video or shaky hands, that's what was happening. Also, I used auto white balance, so the back wall is gonna sort of change between slightly warm to totally white. Enjoy.
Years that I've been in, I think this company has transformed into something which is completely different, and I think we're making the right, we're going in the right direction. Because at this point, I think it would be unfair to compare this to what this company was 25 years ago.
I totally agree.
And plus, like I keep saying, it's good to have cool tech, but can you build a business on it?
Exactly.
Because that's when I came on, we're like, it's great that we have this, but Sumit, how do we build a business? How do we build visibility so that I can get institutional investors?
Hey everyone, thank you for joining. I wanted me to start off with just a few comments. First of all, I just want to tell everybody that it really means a lot that you guys all came. Microvision used to do this event back in 2018, pre-COVID, and it was a smaller event we used to do further up the road. It kind of fell off because of COVID, but we intend to do this at least once a year, just to get back into the cadence of it. Just so you know, we have a very large investor base. I think it's important for you guys to come and touch and feel and see the things that we're doing instead of just the videos and the other ways of communicating. So, certainly I know how hard the entire team works on things. And personally, I was just telling the team outside that it means a lot that you guys care so much about it. So sometimes in the busyness of life, we're all moving at different paces. Sometimes, we don't get a chance to tell you how much we appreciate it, but I can tell you that the attention, positive or negative, right, is appreciated, because it's good that somebody's noticing all the hard work people are doing. So thank you. So I think with that, I think we'll just jump in. I think this is like a typical town hall meeting. If anybody's been to a city council meeting, they can turn it into a shit show, but that's the goal here. But the point is, it is a conversation. Anubhav and I are both here. We're talking about the business we're building for you and all the investors. We certainly can talk about technology, but we certainly want to also describe to you the business and the fundamentals that he's talked about. So we want to have a broad discussion and just think about it as a casual conversation. And just ask away. Okay, so I'll turn it over, of course.
Thank you. Chuck Young, local investor out of Duval. And my question is regarding, I don't know what all you can share, but my question is regarding, out of the RFQs that you answered and responded to, would any of them, if awarded, pull the trigger on developing an ASIC?
So for us, what's unique about our product is the one-box solution, the words that everybody's doing, that's always in Microvision, everything we've done for anybody. So the analog and digital ASIC has been part of custom development we always do. Some of our competitors may have an analog ASIC from a company that makes analog ASIC. So they say they have an ASIC, but they don't say if that's their custom ASIC. So to get the lower cost, and to get the real advantage of the technology, we develop our own. Actually, Chris Atkins, who's here, his team here, has been doing that in Redmond for several generations of ASIC. For us, we intend to launch, as we said, the analog ASIC this year, and the digital ASIC soon after that. I mean, the work has already started on the digital ASIC, but we intend to focus on these RFQs to close it out, to make sure if there's some custom feature that somebody needs. Once the ASIC is done, it is hardwired, it's in the silicon. You want to get the features in. So of course, we want to make sure that we listen to all our customers, and if there's something that we can put inside there that gives them an advantage or somebody else, we'll do that. But the intention is that very soon after that, the digital ASIC will start.
Thank you.
MVIS LiDAR is in every RFQ. So you are inside the process, and you said you showed that in 2019. Mm-hmm. So if I'm an OEM in 2019 and that solves my problems, I guess my question would have been, well, when can I have it? So I guess you're inside the process, we're outside. You've obviously been building these bridges since 2019. People told you what they needed. I guess in one succinct form, what is that? And how do we value it? And how do we place it in context with everyone else in the sector?
So think about, this comes up often as in, our competitors have a feature, a spec. Why don't you talk about the specs more? because it's really difficult to describe to people that are not deeply into the technology. It gets too nuanced. But as investors, just as people, think about it this way. Some of our competitors, when they would have a product, they would have a wide field of view. When you're very near that point, all the points are close by. So they're symmetrically distributed across that wedge, let's say. But as you go further and further out, that same points just keep away from each other. So what happens is, if you build a wide field of view with static pixels, like the flash-based LiDAR is, if you look at the flash-based LiDAR video back there, near the sensor, there's lots of lines, lots of points. But the further away you go, there's bigger holes that appear in the point cloud. Okay? To combat that, what you really need is a dynamic view LiDAR. And what that is that in different fields of view, which is different distances away from the car, that the field of view changes. So the resolution is maintained through the entire thing. So instead of thinking about the field of view as like a wedge, as a piece of a pie, now you think about it as like 3 different rose petals. So effectively you have taken the road and you're not firing lasers off into buildings that are off the road. And this way you take the field of view, collapse it down, and you maintain the high resolution, the area of interest where you're driving. So it's all about resolution. The more points you have on target, so if you have a small object in the middle of the road, you want more and more points there. But if you have a wide field of view where you have these big holes in the point cloud, it'll be harder to detect things. So the technique that our team had developed, this is very, very innovative. It allows you to use 905 nanometer laser, drive in sunlight, which you guys did, some people that I have, distance is not a problem on a sunny day. And you also have a very high resolution with a dynamic view that allows you to small objects in the road far away. So that's what dynamic view is. So every RFQ effectively is asked for multiple fields of view in a single box solution. So if you have a sensor like the flash-based, you would need one of those for near, one of those for far, one of those for somewhere in the middle. Now you need 3 of those, and a one-box solution would be massive. So that technology is not the right tool for that problem.
Is that new to this RFQ cycle?
It is new to the last couple of years RFQ cycle, yeah.
Is that something we've been driving in terms of innovation?
I had, yeah.
So,
I'm gonna have Anubhav give the comment about, milestones, as in like business milestones and technical milestones. We want to make a distinction for that. Let's say you have an RFQ win, then you are actually doing a custom development for them. When I say custom, it's not really ground up custom. The inner guts, the MEMS, the optics, the lasers, the electronics, the ASIC, it's all the same. But they may have a different package, how it fits inside, different connector, some other key other requirements, what fields of view they want. That's all development that has to be done. It has to be done with respect to the automotive process, which is slow because it goes through the process of qualifying. Target dates for those launches are going to be 2026 in that time range. And it's not because the technology takes that long to develop. Its qualification is a very methodical process that you have to be in. So post any kind of deal, you are part of the process now that you have to develop, and they're developing a vehicle, you're developing a sensor, so they have their milestones they have to hit because they have qualification for their vehicle. Your sensor is part of a battery pack and tires and windshield and crash testing, right? They have a whole process of qualifying every vehicle. So this is big time qualification right now. So, but it's not like, it doesn't take a decade, but it is, several years, absolutely going to see sample. But definitely want, Anubhav to talk a little bit about how we think about, go ahead.
Just back to the process. So you mentioned you demonstrated dynamic view LiDAR in 2019. So this is a process that's been several years in the making. Is our product a little more highly evolved than a lot of products out there? Have you had the benefit of OEM feedback early enough in the process that you were able to take to circumvent some of the design process work? Obviously, it still needs to be qualified, needs to be validated. But is there anything you feel you have to jump on?
Adam, if you look at the product we have, it's built not like a prototype in the back of a room, right? It is pretty solid. It has got a lot of things that can get qualified. And certainly, I feel confident that our MEMS are going to be well beyond the life of a car, right? But that's many, many years worth of work. But when you're thinking about these customers, you're talking about these, OEM customers. They're very conservative. It does not matter where you are, you're still gonna go through the churn. You still have to go through the milestones because you are new to them. The only way you go through that, you could have 5 customers you've done it for, but you gotta do it their way, right? Because they take the liability to deliver a product, a full-blown car, qualified, to the consumer. So they have huge liability. So regardless of what you think about, right? The way to think about it, it gives us confidence that we're gonna get qualification done. That's how I look at it, right? So I worry about a lot of things, I don't worry about that. Because yeah, I mean, I'm an engineer, so when I look at the stuff that these guys have developed, it's pretty unbelievable the level of maturity that's there. Like if I was a customer, I know that I'm gonna go through that process, but I'm like, oh, this is really good, these guys really know what they're doing. It just gives you confidence that if you pick them, they know how the work has to get done. And with the acquisition of Ibeo, they've actually gone through the qualification for the product that actually went all the way to the C sample before the insolvency happened. So I think that both companies combined, both teams combined, when it comes to Maven, when it comes to Movia, certainly they know how to qualify that. So that's the thing that investors should be confident about.
And they're seeing maturity in the product, even at this stage.
Absolutely.
In comparison to peers, which maybe you think I can't answer, or?
No, I can answer that. I mean, that's an opinion. I mean, that's just public data, right? We're an A sample, but I would say that the components inside are significantly more mature than what a typical A sample would be. I would say people that are showing B and C samples, some of the problems I hear at CES and other places, just out in the public, that they're having with other people's technology, I would say that is not a true B sample even, right? Because the key components are getting changed out. In our case, the key component performance is being tweaked. New manufacturing partners are being qualified. Supply chains are being developed, right? But the design's not changing, design's the same. So I would say, yeah, we are more mature, but I just want to be very, very clear with everybody that's here and who's going to listen to this event, that you still have to go through the process, right? So there is no shortcuts in life when it comes to that industry, which is safety related. Okay. Anubhav, you want to talk a little bit about the business milestones?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to tie. Why? Because what this design wins will entail is, especially if Sumit mentioned, if there's going to be a custom feature that the OEMs will need in their product, we would be obviously going for an NRE that will be funding that development cycle. So obviously that's what we expect to also help the company from a cash flow standpoint. The whole idea at the end of the day boils down to the milestones of this process has to be set from a business perspective. Because at the end of the day, a cool technology is only good enough, but it's how do you build a business around it. A business which is based on a foundation of what the revenue streams are going to be, and how do you go from point A to that point until when the car starts coming out of the production facility from the OEM. So I think this is what's very important to understand, that that's how we're thinking about the business, and that's how we're going to approach this design wins. Because at the end of the day, the whole idea is between design win and the day the cars start coming out of the production facility, how does a company achieve those steps?
Hi, Alex Yu. I actually want to kind of go back to about 3 years ago when you became CEO. The expectation, obviously, it's very different now than before. But one of the things that when you first joined, was talking about strategic alternatives, whether it be a licensing deal for certain verticals. And we heard, as investors, that's what we kind of banked on. And that's why, we supported Microvision, getting it over $1. That's the whole process. And after about a year, that kind of just stopped. Mm-hmm. And if we are truly best in class, you would think that there would be suitors, whether it be from chip companies, automotive companies, whatever it may be. And as investors, I've only been invested since 2018 with people here from 1998. It's a different company now. You were 19 or whatever it was. 25 at that time. We are tired investors, mm-hmm. and it's the same story, mm-hmm. but obviously it's different, we hope.
So it's not the same then?
It's not the same. Okay. So we hope. Everyone's here because, look, we think that there's huge potential here. Our stock's at $2.12 today. When and how soon can we change that perspective? Instead of, all we're hearing now is 100 million shares of each.
Yeah. So your question has so much stuff matched in, I'm going to break it apart. Okay. All right. Let's start with strategic alternatives. Okay. When I took over, the company was looking at no capital, delisting, looking at insolvency within 7 months. Okay. So company, when they say strategic alternatives, there is only one thing: sell it as a whole, sell it as a part. That was my job. Absolutely. Right. The first time the process came up, the investors rejected it. And I will tell you on the record for the first time, I'm not going to name the company, but $1 trillion company offered single-digit $1 million for the entire thing. And the thing that was thrown to me was, well, you guys are going to be out of business. Your investors don't support you. Like, I'm getting worked up just telling you this right now. That's what happened. So whatever you think is your experience, try to take a first-time CEO. You think my career, I wanted to do that. I put my life into it. That happens. So strategic alternatives, there should be no misunderstanding. We ran a process as best as possible. Okay? So I think, like, I get it, right? Investors get tired, but you know what? The reality is that companies that have more money, more power, they're opportunistic. Why would they pay what is fair if they can get it for less? That's what happened. That's exactly what happened, okay? Then I focused the company where I actually believed it was going to be successful. And it did work out, didn't it? I mean, the stock did peak, the stock has gone down. So some of you must have extracted some out of those things. Management did not take any money out of it, certainly, right? So effectively, the business direction we picked was the right one, Alex. Now, what has happened in 30 years? I mean, there's only things I can answer that I'm dealing with right now, that Anubhav is dealing with right now, that Drew, deals with right now. So clearly what we're telling you is that, okay, the market is going through a cycle. Where the stock price is now versus where it was 18 months ago, that's like really not out of our control, actually. It's not like we're the only ones that have gone down. If anything else, Anubhav always reminds us of the proportions that our competitors have gone down compared to us. And certainly we're in a better position because we manage our cash better, we communicate much better. So yeah, you're saying that it's same as before, but it not really is. By your own vision, it's a different company completely. The last 3 years were different. And the journey for that did not start just with me. The journey was starting, our board was involved. They were trying to find a solution. But what we realized was you had this amazing technology, but you do a deal with Microsoft or Sony or Pioneer or the military, the markets are not big enough. You had this amazing technology that can solve so many problems, but yet none of those markets were big enough for the amount of OpEx that is. So we have actually focused ourselves to creating a good business, a business that's sustainable at its right level, and get to market as fast as possible and get revenues, right? As the things that we're saying are going to happen is how the company is going to be successful, and that's plain and simple. And the cycles of that, I mean, I'm that transparent. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about it, and it's always the same fluid answer. You're in it for a while now because that's exactly what the people, your target market, is going to do. But at least you know for a fact is there's multiple target customers that are looking for it. They're talking publicly that they're going to do something. You have multiple companies you're competing against. Whereas any of those other projects that you may have invested for, how many people actually were successful in that and how much market was developed for that? I mean, Microsoft right up the street, we did the work for them. I mean, this is record, so nothing new there. How big did that get? I mean, it's an amazing company, really smart people, great software things. So imagine what it takes to actually create a market. Now, for the first time in the history of the company, we're not trying to create a market. We're already in a market that's been created, and it's got multiple players in it. So I think it's a completely different company. The Microvision name is still the same. The logo color may have changed. There's no hidden secret in there, by the way. It was just it's red lasers or IR lasers, so it's a red color. That's it. That's about it. There's no controversy there. But the point was, why did we change the color? It is a different company, right? It's the same thing, but all the investments you guys have done, it is a labor of love for us, but it's also labor of love for yourself. It enabled engineers, some engineers have been here for 17 years, they've been working on this tech. They have actually poured more than all of us that have put money into the company. I can assure you that I would see. That's real love, right? But they finally feel more excited because they know there's a market for their stuff. Before it was just sort of like this amazing thing that nobody could understand how amazing it would be because nobody would give us the opportunity to make a profit. So it is a different company, right? And I'm patient enough to understand that I get that people just want the results, right? Because that's, again, you're investors. You want to trade up and you want to see what, other opportunity you can create for yourself. But we're being very honest about this is the cadence of the company. This is the future we're in. There's huge revenues in the future. There's competition. We are best in class in the LiDAR. I've never said we were best in class in anything else. I believe that we're best in class in the AR, but it's hard for me to claim that when there's nobody there. I'm the only one, so of course, by nature of it is there. So I pick my words very carefully. But in the LiDAR, I'm absolutely confident there's not a single thing somebody will do that will surprise us. We're way ahead of everybody there, right? And the benefit we have, we build a good business. We build something where the innards of it, for many, many, many years of project, we don't have to do a redesign. We can still meet their requirements for many cycles. So at least, I mean, the biggest risk in any business is if you develop a new product. So we've de-risked that. So, it's a different company, right? I think, we're different focus. We are, I think, a lot more transparent about what we believe, good or bad, what the future is going to be like. So I think, I just want people to judge us for what we are. I think we're authentic as a company. In our filings, we're pretty authentic, and in our communication, we're pretty authentic. So you just have to evaluate if you believe what management is saying or doing or not, and you'll make your bet, right? I've said this before. Some people wake up in the morning, they choose to be long, and some people wake up in the morning, they choose to be short. That's a personal choice, but all I can do, all Anubhav can do, is that we can represent the company for what's really happening, and you have to value the company for that. Okay?
Mike Vulcan,
Hey, Mike.
bear with me as I read this. With 2023 being the year of RFQs and design wins, it's critical that we name names at that time that they're announced. We recognize that the OEMs are largely in control of that, as you've communicated, and I can only speak for myself, but any investment that the company would need to make to assure that will happen would be resources well spent. Validation is critical at this point to investors and potential investors who are looking for that validation. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, again, going back to Alex's question, the history of the company is there's a certain experience you guys have had where the company would not mention partnerships different ways, but again, we were in a different position way back when with those OEMs that we were dealing with. They were much more controlling. In this case, now where we are, we have something that they want as well, and as it's demonstrated, those OEMs are very open to working with companies and talking about the partnership, because for them to get access to our technology, that's going to be there. So I believe that that's something that the investors should be patient about, not be concerned about, because of course we want to provide the validation. If we're going to be a partner for a decade for somebody, more than a decade for somebody, it's important they know who we work with. And I think as far as whatever is required legally for us to disclose publicly, I think Drew is here. I mean, the first thing that happened when she joined was she and I worked together to make sure that April 2017 announcement was happening. And it was not because somebody, or I'm not going to name who it was, did the breakdown. It had nothing to do with that. It was already in the works because Drew and I started working on it right away. But again, she's an attorney. She understood how to do that. So again, the company is changing, right? I think these are very talented individuals. They could, very successful anywhere else. We're lucky to have them. And yeah, I think I'm absolutely certain that we're going to find every opportunity to make sure their shareholders understand who our partners are.
Excellent.
But I acknowledge what you're saying is, and I agree with that sentiment. If you got the best product, best technology, we can demonstrate to them they have the best business that's going to be around for a long time to support their needs. Important. But if they have some other thoughts in mind about, if they need, if somebody else is about to undercut us, to try to take the project away or something, we will use whatever tools are given to us to make sure that we're successful. Absolutely. We tend to be, to make something innovative. Let me just tell you something as an engineer. To make something innovative, you have to be very aggressive. You don't just sit around and flow through it. You have to be very aggressive and work very hard. So our team has done great to create that technology, right? We tend to be very aggressive on business as well to make sure we get the right deals for us.
Good. Because there may be resources, including shares, that may have to be provided to be able to name a name. But
you noticed us, right? We don't do flashy $5 million CS events. We don't do, we think of money, it's a resource, it's limited, right? And we have gotten the best deal for shareholders in everything we've done.
You have.
Right? Including, if you think about, the IBO team is significantly more valuable than you can imagine, right? We just happened to be in insolvency, and it was a lot of hard work over a very long period of time to get that done, right? And I mean, they feel like family now, but it was a labor of love. But we tend to do that with everything, Mike. So what I'm saying is absolutely acknowledge that's what we tend to do, be aggressive. Whatever is necessary to win, we're going to win.
Excellent. One other question. You've announced that ZF will be your tier 1 manufacturing partner for Maven. At that time, you said you anticipated a deepening relationship with ZF moving forward. Can you expand on how the company is deepening that relationship?
Let me correct a few things that I think Jeff advised me of this one, and you guys got it wrong.
All right.
ZF, it's a German company, ZF was a partner for IBEO. They are the manufacturing partner for the LiDAR you see back there. There's a whole production line that produces that. ZF, you can still work with them for that LiDAR. But for Maven, it depends on the OEM. We are open to anything possible. So the statement you said that we're going to partner with them, we can partner with them, we can partner with anybody. But it all depends on what the OEM wants, what their strategy is. If they make cars in an area that ZF does not have a factory, that would, be cumbersome for us. So for us, as management and shareholders, all you have to think about, forget about those names. I know you guys were flipping around who got shares for this. Nobody got any shares. We would have said things. ZF is a tier 1 partner that IBEO worked with. They're great. That's a beautiful factory. But we're going to work and listen to the OEMs again of what they want and what strategy they want us to deliver to them. Delivering technology is one thing, delivering partnerships is another thing, and we're going to deliver what they want.
But haven't you committed to ZF on the manufacturing of Maven?
No, if we did, we would tell you. We haven't. You always talk about, you know what, if you were ZF, I would say, yeah, absolutely, let's work on it, let's think about it. But there's nothing signed. If there was something signed, we would disclose it. If something was signed, like a supply agreement was signed, well, why would I sign that if I don't know that if the OEM said, well, I want to go to this country and they don't have a footprint there and I don't want you to spend money shipping it from point A to point B. Can you find somebody over there? Microvision will actually put the resources in place to put where the OEM needs it. Our customers are the OEM. We may ship our LiDAR to a tier 1 that ships to the OEM for the go-to-market strategy. But the OEMs are our customer. We go directly to them with our technology.
Very good.
Mike, if I may just add one more thing to it, because I think, because we were flipping back and forth between history and now, right? Because this is the first time, as Sumit said, we're in an industry which is already there. And this time, we're not beholden to one. This time, there are many players, there are many tier 1s that every OEM has a favorite. So that's why the whole point was, why would you want to be married to one? And I think the whole point is, this time, the company has a product which has applications, which has customers in geographies, not just here, but even in European Union, right? So that's why it makes all the more sense to not have just one egg in one basket, but have eggs spread out, because that's what diversifies our strategy as a company.
So think about it like you are invested in a company that has the technology that's going to enable things for many, many years to come. Others that want to manufacture, that's all they're bringing, manufacturing, supply chain value, right? It is our job on your behalf to get the best deal possible. So the name is incidental, right? Anybody that can do the deal that makes the company whole and significantly stronger footing, that's what we should all demand. Okay? Yeah. All right, just go ahead. I'm sorry.
My name is Lucas. Quick question, with the FKA consortium info that came out this morning, as far as that process goes, can you guys add any comments as far as what value or insights that whole journey gave you guys, and then what should we expect from
did you do a demo run yet?
Yeah.
So I think you see it running. I think this is what OEMs see running. There's data sheets and RFQs, and there's all this other concepts and other work that we do to describe to them. If you think about the consortium, it's important to be part of those consortiums because OEMs, it's not about one technology. They want a unified way how they want to evaluate a group of technologies, right? So the value there is you hear of how those standards will set for the future, right? But it does not change your path of what you have to do, because the OEMs also give you a spec saying, hey, all of you guys, if you want to be in my technology roadmap, you have to be able to achieve this. And that's something we do directly with them. So it informs us of how things will be evaluated. Like, for example, I think somebody said that they saw 270 meters in the LiDAR today. Bright sunny day out, right? So, you yourself saw today that when people make claims that, can't see more than 160 meters or whatever the numbers were, I forget. You saw with your own eyes what it's running. So what the consortium does is people that mince the specs, like we don't, like, pretty plain what you see. But if there was anybody out there that's mincing their specs to say something, but their product, does not conform the right way, they're coming up with a unified way to test everybody's technology. That's the way to think about it, right? But as far as, why would I personally not be that involved in that one? Just be monitoring it, because I'd rather work with the engineers, because get the technology right. We know what we have to build. The hard work is the building of it, not just knowing how to be evaluated, because what you saw running meets and exceeds of how even a human will perform. So therefore, yeah, it's important to know how that will all work out, but it's not the driving force. Okay.
Thank you.
So Chuck Gravo, just this question centers around the supply chain, just get clarity around that design. When you think about planning volumes, sourcing componentry, manufacturer, assembly test, and ultimately the delivery, what does that look like now for Microvision? And as volumes ramp up, does that fundamentally change to more of an in-source model or outsource model? Just any color around that?
Yeah, so I think in A sample, Jeff, because it was COVID, I think in the public record, we bought all the components that we were going to need to make all the A samples, because it was unclear back in 2020 what was going to happen with the Chinese supply chain, if you recall. So right after we got, we raised a little bit more capital, we started buying components for the A sample, right? But that's typical of A sample, because you want to control your own destiny, you're figuring out how to make parts. As you go towards B and C sample, you're going to have a manufacturing partner. You're going to have supply chain internally to all these key commodities. You want to know what the price is out there. You don't want to rely on somebody else giving you a piece price variance on top of what it really costs, because they're just a manufacturer. But ultimately, the supply chain is, it's going to be outsourced. I mean, the entire product design, the process map, and the control plan is ours. That is also IP, by the way. It's not just the patent we filed. That is part of intellectual property. Well, we give those designs to somebody to manufacture to our requirements. And then as volumes come in, of course, part of the value added they have is they source all those components. So you want to create a company that is, you need capital in the company, but for things that you do. I'm not the manufacturer at the end of the day, right? I develop the designs, I get the acceptance done, I'm involved in getting the qualification done, but then yes, somebody else turns the crank for that, and they sell through us, and that's how we, of course, monetize ourselves, right? So think about a more contract manufacturing model. This is also true of our competitor in Israel, right? Recently, I was watching something on LinkedIn, actually. There was a video from Magna, and they talked about all the technology they had, but then say, oh, but we only manufacture this LiDAR. They could not even say the name of that, right? Because it's not their design. They're a manufacturer, so they actually admit it, right? So in this case, tier ones are manufacturing partners, and yeah, managing supply chain is why you go to them, right? But you have to identify the supply chain, so you do need talent to say, what do I need, and can this person actually make my product long term? So we do that evaluation. We will have supplier development engineers that go out there, do the qualification. We own yield, so when we think about a line that gets qualified, we want to make sure roll first pass yield is at a certain level. That's how we know profitability. And we leave the factory with that process plan and control plan and every process map and equipment, and then they have to maintain that yield, and they give us a certain price on that yield, right? So that's what they manage. So it's a more predictable model. We're not going to reinvent this thing.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Suleiman Khan, this question's for you, Anubhav. I know when you onboarded the CFO, one of your main goals was to get more analyst coverage. How is that process going? And is it on the critical path to discussions with institutional investors, or is the company kind of doing that in parallel?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, so I think one of the first things that when I came on board was the objective to get us in front of the investors, right? Because obviously we have a huge retail following, but I think I wanted to get this story out there to be known to banks, investment banks, institutional investors, hedge funds, mutual funds. The reason why is because we are the only public company which is not a SPAC. And that is a huge advantage. Why? Because obviously we have over 2 decades of SEC filings. We do not have any overhang with the stock, overhang with the SPAC that the other competitors have. Now, what happened with even IBEO, there were some analysts or institutional investors who were watching or following IBEO. So ultimately, we have started to get way more traction at this point with institutional investors. And guess what? I think, I'm pretty sure one of you will have this question, so I'm even anticipating it, because I think at the end of the day, what is the company doing also in terms of reducing the short interest. Look, at the end of the day, what a company, we as a management team is doing is building a business brick by brick as a traditional public company. How do you do that? Build credibility. Do everything what you say, execute on that, and demonstrate that you have done this already. And I think that's sort of why, when we recently announced our Q1, preliminary revenue guidance, the whole idea is to sort of build up the anticipation, and hopefully we will be able to beat all our expectations as a company. And I think that's what establishes credibility in analysts. Now, one thing, as you can imagine, what has happened is a lot of these analysts started covering a bunch of our peers as part of the IPO. And guess what? They got burnt. Why? Because they had stock price targets which were multiples of $10, because that's what the typical IPO price of a SPAC is. They got burned. Why? Because again, these SPACs were based on lofty projections, never met them, and now these SPACs are down 95% from their original IPO value. Now, what this does is the analysts need to be a lot more conservative, and the analysts are now looking for companies like us who will not be giving out projections that they cannot meet. So I think as a management, what you will hear from us is we want to do things which we can deliver and execute, and that's how you build up trust, inch by inch, brick by brick, in this whole investment community. Because at the end of the day, what we believe is, and this was one of the reasons why I actually chose Microvision as well, because the DNA, right? Because you can make a quick flip, of course, we have all seen what happened in 2021 and 2022. The era of free money or free market, right? Obviously, as things settle down, because I think as industry becomes more cognizant and more geared towards businesses that are generating revenue and profits in the near term, rather than focusing on something which will be of value, will be prioritized, will be given or ascribed more value than the others. We have seen that happen. Again, you've seen Argo, you have seen examples of a lot more companies which are focused on fully autonomous driving, sort of, market realizing that, hey, the monetizable opportunity is now in L2 and L3. And I think the whole point is that's what we are building, and that's what we are trying to create in the investor community and the analyst community as well. Because if you demonstrate these earning estimates and beat them, that's how you build credibility, and that's what we plan to do in the next 12 to 18 months as well, as we deliver on our targets that we have announced this year.
Thank you.
Jim Sturville, longtime investor in Microvision. I rode with ups and downs and passed up a big profit when we got to 25, but I had more future thoughts of keep owning this company. My question is how, and I haven't done the ride yet, but how did it come that you teamed up and put it in a Jeep, or was there help from that corporation to marry your system into it, or did you just do all that on your own?
No, I think the Jeep is incidental. There's nothing hidden in there. I think we wanted a demo vehicle. It was developed by a team. Our team worked very hard to identify a partner that had the platform we needed. What they were going to do development on. The team in Germany, of course, had Mercedes and Tiguan's and others, right? So there's nothing. It's about our team looked at the companies that were available that we could work with to get that platform built out. That's it.
So you installed it without the help of Jeep, or was there?
No, I think they just buy the Jeep, and the company we work with modifies the Jeep to what we need. So it's and then they, of course, they deliver that to us. But it's like they probably just go to a dealership and buy a Jeep.
You were saying OEMs are looking at 2026 model cars. How early would they have to get their hands on it to get it in that car? Like, when would that deal be made if that was?
That's the RFQs right now.
Okay.
So 2026 qualifications, start ramping up in 2027. So yeah, decision right now so you can get a qualified part, and that is not an easy, I know 3 years is a long time as an investor. Think about it, I can tell you how many earnings calls are going to happen, how many Ks we're going to file. But can you imagine, for them, that's an unbelievable pace. And the team, the IBO team that's here, they've gone through it, they can tell you, there's not not an easy day. So it is a very hard pace to get the qualification.
Right, that was my point. I'm an engineer, and I don't know how early they need to have that sensor, when the deal needs to be inked in order to get a 2026 model.
I think, as you said, right, our focus is on 2023 RFQ design wins. I think the answer is in there.
Okay.
Any other questions?
By the way, lunch has arrived, so if anybody is hungry, grab it and come back. So it's not disruptive at all.
There's a hand in the back there.
Yeah.
Hi, Jonathan Herring. You answered a question earlier pertaining to RFQs, and I'm going to paraphrase here. You mentioned this, there are a lot of things that keep you up at night, and this wasn't one of them. So I'll ask you, what does keep you up at night?
I think, again, like as Alex mentioned, right, there's a 30-year history of the company, but there's also all of us that have been in this space for a long time. They've been in technology. I'll probably never sleep at this job as much as I want. It's because there's always something to grow at. But right now, even if you think you have something locked in, for me personally, done is done. I think my team knows I use that, and I annoy them a lot when I keep telling them, like, you will know when it's done because there's nothing more left to do, right? So as you think about, building a business out, there's a bunch of things to do. We've done a great job building the technology, but building the business out, there's, again, brick by brick, establishing it, right? Those things are not trivial either. I think, like, as engineers, sometimes we get excited about technology, but we forget companies that are successful, they have both muscles. They have the technology muscle and they have the business muscle as well. So what keeps me up at night is get the adoption done, get the, 3 years is a long time. No hiccups can ever happen. Think about the April 2017 customer. How many times did we have some delay that, was caused by whatever happened? It was not that big in the consequential, but you know what? That is a problem. And you're in an industry where none of those things can happen. You want to get launched on time. And again, once you've had one, you don't just sit around like, our competition, they've had one or two and they haven't really done much with it. Our intention would be to stay aggressive on the business side and increase the velocity of adoption, right? If you created something that's the right price, does the right thing, has perception, how do you actually go get more customer faster than anybody ever has? So those are the kind of things. Build a business that will essentially accelerate after that. So, some of you here may say, it's time to spike the football after you're done with one. That is not a successful business, actually. Because you already know what happens with companies that do that. The other companies that went through public through their D-SPAC. So we're going to have to really build a business to say, how do you accelerate? Because what you want to do is you want to be 80, 90% market share of the entire segment. That's what Mobileye did, right? They accelerated everything. It's a great business. They focused on it, maniacally focused on building a very strong business globally and to accelerate adoption, not just the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever the first few happen. You want to say there's 60 OEMs out there. How do I get into every program as fast as possible? And then my long-term cost to customer acquisition goes down because when I enter an RFQ, I really don't have to put so much effort in because it costs a lot of money to do an RFQ. There's a lot of talent you put behind it and accelerate that. So those are the kind of things. Building a business is, still something that we have to focus on and, add as a muscle as a company.
I think we're going to go to the back next.
Hi, my name is Ashwin. I spoke to Anubhav earlier over here, and he did a great job of explaining to me how the company decided to pursue the auto industry as the place of maximum revenue and return on investment for the dollar that you spend. And I fully understand that logic, and I see its reflection in the stock market as well. But in the next 2-3 years, you're entering this matured phase where you'll have a $7-figure dollar income coming in. And at that point, you now hopefully don't have to make the choice of having to spend just the singular dollar, but have an ability to choose where you reinvest that money coming in. So for the long-term investor, are you thinking of reinvesting it back into the LiDAR space, or do you have any thoughts on de-risking out of the auto industry or out of the LiDAR space and maybe into a direct-to-consumer or an AR vertical? Or basically, I'm asking for thoughts on where you're reinvesting.
That's a good question. It's a very fair question. I think I kind of almost started answering it with this one. What all of us as investors want is to actually take whatever money comes back in, invest it back into the business, and get faster. Like companies that are very successful, what do? They enter a market, there's lots of people. They get their foot in, and then they accelerate past everybody else, okay? And then they go 60, 80% of the market share of that segment. And then you really get to scale and get to dictate. So you have to maniacally focus till you get to that point. You set your prices, you set the features, you have your partnerships. Once you get to those points and you have free cash flow coming from that business, then you can think about what you're suggesting, like, hey, should we go back to AR? Maybe like, you guys can give me a hard time. I know a lot about AR. I have a feeling for it. I'm just saying that at some point when it comes in, maybe that's the right time that happens because we have actually won this market and now you have a reputation. But it would be premature to start going into the next shiny thing. If there was a big market, I would be the first one standing in front of you guys saying, hey, we have to raise more capital and we have to put a team together and focus on that market. But all the public market data tells you AR is not that big right now. It will be someday. Companies like Apple and Samsung are talking about it. But what if it takes a decade? How do you fund the company then, right? So we have something, and when the money comes in, you're better off perfecting what you have, accelerate your path of acceptance within the industry you're in, and just dominate the segment. If you build the best-in-class technology and you build a really strong business, you should win, right? So.
And Ashwin, if I can just add to that, because I think at the end of the day, auto is the biggest price that the company has. But I think what differentiates us is bridging the gap between now and then. And that's why non-auto applications or the industrial application, I think you all saw how the sensor is used for agricultural purposes. That's what we're going after. The validation software that you saw at the demonstration, that's what gives us the high contribution margin revenue, which falls to the bottom line as profits. Again, something that we got strategically from the Anubhav acquisition. In my mind, this is actually a very good strategy to de-risk and bridge the gap between now and then, while we are focused on the automotive. And I think that's what the stock market and the markets in general are expecting, right? Again, to go after something what he described as AR, which is down the road. Of course, when the company has enough capital and enough resources, we will deploy anything to fire on all cylinders to pursue growth. Because how do you get valuations high? You build a business which is high tech, high growth with cash flows. That's what Mobileye demonstrated, and I think this is sort of a line has been drawn in the sand. History repeats itself, right? At the end of the day, this was an example set by a company which was developing something which was not popular or commercially available at that time. And they scaled the business, and look what happened in 2015, 2016. I think that's sort of what sets a benchmark for any company which is aspiring to build a model, to build a business, which is going to be highly valuable. So that's sort of why we're focused on our resources. What we believe is going to generate revenue and potential, that's what we are focused on today.
Thank you. Go back to the front here. You still have that follow-up?
Let's go again. Actually had some few short questions. Regarding Ibeo, there was an announcement regarding scale of 1 order. Some question related to that was, that's an old generation. So Microvision is now getting money for that. But how about like scale of 2 and 3? Do we get any royalties on that? Second question.
Can we do it one at a time?
Yeah.
I think I'll have another answer, but we haven't talked about this on our earnings call yet. So as you remember, this event is about nothing public, anything new yet.
Right.
So I think in the next earnings call, perhaps we'll talk about that.
Will there be, regarding the Ibeo acquisition, I know when you acquire private companies, sometimes they'll actually file an 8K with some historical financial information for Ibeo. Are we going to be filing that anytime soon?
Absolutely, we. Yep.
When do you think that'll be?
That'll be anytime soon.
Okay. And third one would be...
That's a good answer.
The Sharp contract, I know that was extended. Now, can you talk more about that? Was that for HUD? I know that Sharp is somewhere in the... the thing about Sharp is, they do a lot of things, but one thing they just need an investment in a laser beam scanning company, startup, and I think it was a $20 million investment with other people. I think every one of us invested in Microvision, most of us anyway, because of the AR business. And we know that it's not anytime soon, but we want to make sure that we are still going to be dominant decades into the future. And what we're seeing with the Sharp investment is that, maybe we're not going to be dominating.
How much was the investment in Sharp?
I don't know how much it was, but the investment round was about $20 million.
What was our OpEx in the past? You can't even run the company for 1 year based on what they made investment, is my point, right? I'm not trying to be cheeky, right? I think let's talk about the Sharp investment. It was really for the, when we did the interactive display, the non-interactive, just the projection display for voice control, it was for that engine, for that design, right? Using our analog ASICs and the digital ASICs, the new digital ASIC was developed for that. That was the past. That was the big one. We carved out some other parts of interactive display there. They could have gone into AR, but they did not. They were not able to find any customers. So they're sharp with a big business development team globally, because it was many years of development required, right? I think that it was not just bird in hand. Yeah, we had the technology in hand, but to develop that was going to take a long time. So if somebody's making some, incremental investment in different places, look, just go back and look at what is it that they make actually, right? Why would they make that investment? They make beautiful, beautiful displays, big ones, right? But they have a small business that does lasers, red lasers, and they brought on blue and green lasers, of course, right? So they're trying to compete with the micro LED space, and they're, certainly you can do a much more beautiful AR display with a scanning system. We know this, right? We know a lot about it, right? But can I predict for you that long-term, 10 years from now, will be best in class for that? No, I can't predict that right now, because nobody knows what the customer wants. So the benefit, like some of you picked up, was in 2019, very early, we started understanding what the LiDAR partners are going to require now. This is like market intelligence you talk about. You can't buy this stuff. You really have to get engaged. Nobody knows, and I'm not kidding, nobody knows what AR people will adopt 10 years from now. Like a multi-trillion-dollar company does not even know that right now. So they would not know what to tell anybody. So the market is all waiting. All these display companies, these micro display companies, they're all waiting actually, because those big companies have to figure out, how am I going to market and monetize these devices with the consumer right now? It's not just software, it's about hardware, what people are going to wear, what the use cases are going to be. And that's what it is, right? I mean, that's the big part of it. Once that gap fills out, we'll be where we are right now, where an OEM, when you go talk to them, they know what they want to build. They know how they're going to market it. They know what the price point has to be. They know what the features has to be. So no display company has that right now. So in that sense, I don't think they're falling behind. That's an honest and fair answer. It's like I'm not slicing it thin for you guys in any way possible. I'm just saying that's the reality of it.
Right. So thank you for that. Just one more. Regarding the HUD market for automotive, Microvision was looking into that 2005, 6, whatever it may be, and kind of fell off the earth. But now we're seeing a lot more vehicles coming with an HUD system. Is that going to come back? What are the advantages to LBS compared to the other technologies that are out there? Is this something that has potential now?
I don't believe it's going to come back. And the reason for that is thin film transistor displays got super cheap, and they solved the high temperature problem fast enough. And what they also figured out was people don't want color displays. What they want is they want the speed and an arrow. So they don't want Google Maps up there, which is, if you need Google Maps, then you come talk to us, right? But what people wanted just like left arrow, and a speed. They wanted something very simple because it was too distracting for them. So it comes down to human-machine interaction. But people wanted those customers to realize, hey, this is all that's needed for that display. A thin film, a LCD display that is just industrialized for high temperature is probably all they need. And I don't know if you've ever driven a car with that. I recently rented one with it, and it's. I'm not saying this to be it's cute, but if it was not there, I would not miss it, right? Whereas if you think about safety, once you buy a car with airbags, 7 airbags, you bought it for safety. Think about the ADAS market, right? It is a necessity. The HUD market, right? I mean, what the penetration would have been is unclear. But what is clear to us, if you've been an investor for a long time, lots of folks here for 20 plus years, just go back and look at the OpEx that the company always has to sustain just to be relevant. Right? I mean, this is operating losses you're talking about. Just look at it. So to create our technology, it is not something as some 5 or 6 engineers can keep it alive. There's a group, a critical mass needed to keep it alive. Right? So therefore, you have to find a market that is congruent to what it's going to take. How much OpEx is going to be needed to just address it. Right? So I don't believe at this point the HUD market has taken off that much in automobiles for that reason, because not every car has it. There's no regulation for it. There's the expensive cars, they have it sometimes, and there's other technologies that are nowhere near as sophisticated and vivid as what Microvision could provide, but people deem it as good enough for now.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, we're going to go to this gentleman with the sunglasses. But before you ask his question, we just need to adjust Sumit's mic. 1 second.
You talked about
Sorry,
that.
your name first?
I'm sorry. My name's John Nelson. You talked about that gap, built between where we are now and the place where I believe we can be hugely successful with Maven in a few years. Or long. So there's a gap. There's people who are betting very strongly against this company that are partially dictating the share price, which, to Sumit's point, there's very little, if anything, you guys can do about. On the other hand, you're the only guys that can do anything about it in terms of the company building that you talked about and that filling the gap. So I was wondering if you could add any color in terms of that gap space, what exactly you can do to build that value quickly. And
I'll give the emotional answer, and then he's going to give the practical answer. Okay. There is so much energy, so much passion that people have in life if you choose where to deploy it, right? Anything that has happened with those companies and CEOs go on CNBC and talk up a lot of, right? You actually look at their stock, it did not make a difference because, unless you sustain that pace and that's all you do, right? But then you're not working on the business. And the critique that came of that one CEO I think you're referring to was exactly that. If you just worked on his company, found better customers, increased his margins, things would be much better long term, right? So that's, I'm giving that answer because I'm just telling you, like, this is it. This is what I work on. This is how I think about it, is work on the tough problem. And the tough problem is not to get on and like yell and scream and flail my arms about how unfair life is, but how do you beat them? Beat them something they cannot do. They can't do what management can do. We can come up with objectives, we can build the business, and long term they're going to lose, right? That's it.
So let me give you, how we are killing the shorts, if that's the word. I think a lot of the short activity is driven by algorithms, right? These are algo tradings that are constantly trading, feeding on the data that, the company was this EPS, and it's just a fictitious circle that people create, and that's what they're doing. How to beat that? I think the way to beat that is it's a consistent and sustained process of beating your estimates. That's what all traditional public companies have been built on. That's what the history they had. And I think we started that financially in 2022. We had said that this would be a cash burn. We actually came in much lower than that. Not a lot of people picked up on that. Why? Because this is why in all my meetings with the institutional investors who have been in some of the other companies, they're like, hey, all other companies are actually overburning cash, not even meeting revenue and estimates. And I think here's this new company, well, not new company, but a company which actually says what it delivers. So delivers what it says. And I think that's what we want to set a precedent on. Because if we do that consistently, this is what will kill the algos. Because yes, every time, I want to be known as the biggest sandbagger, right? Because that's how you kill the shorts. And that's how all public companies, great public companies, were built on. Consistently executing what you said and delivering on your promises. That's how you build credibility. That's why I keep going back. That's how yes, it requires patience, but that's how you build a business brick by brick and not wait for these spikes in stock prices. So that's why, yes, as much as I get faced by some of these stock price movements, but I understand that yes, this needs time and patience because that's how you win. Every day, work at it, consistently and build it brick by brick.
Appreciate your answer. Follow-up question for Sumit. Just retired, long time, real-time software engineer working in safety critical systems. And thinking about your shift to work from FPGA to ASIC. Are there ways and lines of delineation where you could develop ASICs that might satisfy the requirements for multiple OEMs within a single ASIC? In other words, having the flexibility and features that could be turned on and off that would allow that investment to be reaped more than once.
This is a really good question. Of all the questions, this is probably means a lot to all of you guys. Let me just tell you why. So the team has created, when we say the word best in class, that is just a bubblegummy word because you can't describe all the things Chris and all the teams have created already. Once we get this digital ASIC, the features that are inside there are beyond what we have in RFPs today. So for a longer time, these ASICs will survive. because there'll be features that we will roll them out as customers are open to it, but they'll be the silicon. This is important because ASIC programs are expensive, as you know. Once you get this done, you want to milk this for a long period of time. You'll do another ASIC. We'll definitely do other ASICs. We'll think about another feature that we can monetize more. But this first one has to last many, many, many years. So therefore, if you think about your overall burn rate long term, you can think about it, once you start winning, you got more than anybody needs. You can, cost of customer acquisition goes down because, relatively speaking, because it still costs whatever it costs to take a project on. But you don't have to invent new things every time. You don't have to develop a new ASIC and a new every time. The MEMS, the ASIC, most of them survive for multiple generations. You're hearing about our competitors that are redesigning their product because they missed something. You've not actually heard us say that or do that actually. It's because these guys have already done an incredible job of designing things above and beyond. We don't talk about resolution and dynamic view LiDAR as much. Why? It's our secret sauce. There's quite a lot that we have in there that we don't want to talk about. We collected this information from OEMs. This has got IP. And these guys have developed features. When it needs to be public, we'll make it public. So I think Ty gets upset with me because I don't talk too much about it. Why? It is not in our best interest, but it is in the ASIC. That's a really good question.
Back next.
David Anubhav. This is more like a wishful long-term investor. I heard Mobileye twice tonight, today. And I listened to their CEO. He has a great vision, future. And I was just wondering, I was wishing that Microvision could complement with Mobileye in future. And if you have any comment on that, would be appreciated. But I really see the synergy between these two companies. They are a great company with a great vision in future, and what Microvision could offer them if these two companies come together.
I think I'm not going to comment on, I think your question is pretty broad, so let me just narrow it down a little bit if you don't mind. I think, think about our company, so if you think about the bigger problem to solve, ultimately today, the OEMs, when they buy LiDAR systems, they are doing fusion. They're taking somebody's camera module, they're taking somebody's radar, they're taking somebody's LiDAR, and they're going to create this service. So today, we're in the space of LiDAR. Our next step, as I said to a few folks back there, is sensor fusion, where we're going to take radar, which are commoditized, take the data, and fuse that. And so long term, we're again easing the burden for the OEM, which is our true customer at the end of the day, right? Would there be an opportunity for them to think about the camera module-based system they're acquiring versus the fused version they acquired from us or the LiDAR they acquired from us to streamline that further? Absolutely. Do they enable partnerships like that? Absolutely, right? So I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility that once you have adoption, you go off and you work with partners. This is actually a very important point for a business model standpoint, because if you think about our competitors, they talk a lot as if they're going to reinvent the world and they don't need to work with anybody and they're going to deliver autonomous driving. We've never said autonomous driving. I've never said it. I've always corrected people. We're going to do ADAS, and now you notice all our competitors are adjusting their tone to ADAS. It's because they can't forget the OEM in the middle. They don't want to give control to anybody. They want to be the ones to say, I'll pick this LiDAR, this radar, and this camera module, and then I'll decide how that gets integrated. That's their value added. So yeah, we're open to working with anybody. We have great technology. They're just starting their LiDAR path, FMCW, their CTO has talked about it. I think Microvision is way, way ahead, and I'm not trying to be arrogant about it. I'm as humble as possible I can be, that we are way ahead of what I've seen from anybody so far. They may have the brand name, and we don't have that yet, but that's what we're trying to build brick by brick.
Hi, Brian Atchison. I like your humility there. That's good. I wanted to say, first of all, I think your team that you built is excellent. And I think you have zeroed in on the weaknesses of Microvision in the past, with IP protection and contracts, particularly, with finance, and I know your passion with LiDAR since you got here. That said, a couple of quick questions. Do you see any inflection point at December of this year?
Do I see the inflection point? I think you know what our public comments are on what we expect in 2023. I think we're just focused on that. And I think I've said the words epic, and I really meant that. I mean, it took me a long time to write that, of like what, how do I describe what the future looks like in context of what the company has been through over even 30 years, not just my tenure. I think the things that, Anubhav has said about brick by brick, like think about, we have business goals, we have technical goals, we have, other achievements that we're talking about. If all those things happen, which is what we're focused on, it would be epic. So I think, 2023 has been pretty well laid out, and, we're going to hold ourselves responsible with that.
I just meant with the closing of 2023 and then.
I know what you mean.
Okay, good. I'll leave it at that.
I think, guys, listen, I'm not being cheeky here. I think we still have to be careful how we talk publicly, right? I think, anything we raise from you, we need to develop technology and partnerships, not get sued by some short seller that wants to do some mischief, right? I think you know what we're focused on. I think you can see that we're very committed to it. What you're seeing and experiencing is real. And that's what you can count on, that, we're committed to what we have said.
Okay, last question. Are there any Easter eggs today that we should be aware of?
Do we get the ham and cheese? There's nothing.
Okay, you're paying attention.
I'm just joking.
Thank you very much.
It's incidental. So for us, when we were thinking about sensor fusion, what you need is a radar that has a certain kind of output. We need raw data. Our engineers need it, to develop. I think it's a development kit that had what they needed. NXP could have one, TI could have one. It could have been any radar. Whenever they give a development kit and it gives them the data stream that they need. So I would not read anything into that. But the thing to think about is we don't want it to be any specific radar. We want to create something in the future for sensor fusion because all those companies provide radars to the automotive industry. About 147 million radars were sold last year, right? So you want to create something that is more universal. So the brand names you see there are incidental. The only thing that matters there is our LiDAR, including the vehicle it's on is also incidental, as I mentioned. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much again.
Yeah, he's going to go before you.
Regarding the vote.
Tapos ko ulit.
Sorry. Go ahead, John. Go ahead. Just a quick question, yeah. Regarding the vote, the 100 million figure, why 100?
Yeah. So I think, look, from our standpoint, we believe these are the tools that this company needs to take this company to the next level and also compete with our peers. And I think what you can see is from the past when we had asked for 60 even till this date, we have only used, I think, 24, 25 million. So one thing that I think what we have demonstrated, and I think it's resonating really well with investors, not just retail, but even institutional investors, how disciplined the company has been. Even with this acquisition of 250 more people, our cash burn still remains one of the lowest in the industry. I think that's what tells you that why the management has been very disciplined about using the resources that the company has been given. Now, coming back to a question, why 100? Because when I was doing a benchmarking of our peers, what is the firepower or the dry powder the company has in order to pursue deals, in order to pursue, accelerate revenue growth and customer adoption, I feel this was the number which will put us right in line with what our peers have left on the tank in terms of going forward. Because keep in mind, the whole idea of building this business is you want to show to the customer that you have this capacity that you can go and expand into and tap into these resources to build a business. That's how we got to this number, because it's almost the same as in hindsight, 3 years ago, could we have asked for only 25 million shares, right? But then that gave us the buffer or the runway, right? This is the same logic as this share capital is essentially the toolkit that the company needs at this point to take us to the next level. So hopefully that puts things in perspective as to why we want to be on a very strong footing when we go against our peers. Because again, keep in mind, our peers are well capitalized because of the whole IPO hype. Since we did not go through that, we just want to have the right tools to go against that.
And also, if you think about it, it's not, we're not using it, the 24 million that we've expended so far, just keep the lights on anymore. That's where the business has changed. Now what we're doing is we're using to fuel growth. If you think about partnerships, enabling partnerships and going forward, how the share price goes up, how do you beat the shorts? You generate growth at the least amount of OpEx, building a good business. So if you think about it in those terms, everything, should just be resonating with folks that we're, a lot of thought went into it. You want to be in the middle of everything. You want to look at your competition. You want to look at the market. But yeah, our focus is on growth.
Thank you. Here in the second row.
This is Tapas Kole from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm an investor since 1998. I went to Munich and met you. I don't know the remember. I have a question. One thing that most of the OEMs are embracing LiDAR. That's a great thing. But the elephant in the room is Elon Musk. He still doesn't believe in LiDAR. He's going for camera and radar. So my question is that, is anything that LiDAR organization doing with the safety or regulatory that to make sure that LiDAR is a mandatory safety tool? And how about that drive-by-wire we do in a Tesla car and make sure that what the gap Tesla has, it's not there with LiDAR?
Okay, so 2 questions. So let me answer it first, right? Okay. That individual is a genius, right? Is a very, very successful industrialist, has accomplished a lot in life, right? That's all right. But nobody on this planet can break physics. You understand that? Nobody. Does not matter how smart you are. Physics is physics. Okay? So anybody with a software background will tell you what data is needed to actually keep things safe. So ultimately, physics and market will decide what's right and what's wrong. The only L3 qualified car is Mercedes, with a Vallejo sensor that the Scala team was developed by Aveo a long time ago. That's the only LiDAR that's ever shipped, and that's the only car that's actually delivered L3 feature, where the OEM takes responsibility for any kind of crash that would happen with that. That's the only car delivered. That is so big, you can't even imagine when they actually have announced that. Okay, well ahead of regulation. So that's all that actually matters. So that's the first part of the, your question, right? Second part is, if I can do the same demo with a car that costs $40,000, why would I spend $100,000, right? So let's not get hung up on those things. That's not how marketing works, right? Build a great product. We're going after OEMs that have big RFQs. There's companies out there that have 10 million vehicles that they make annually, right? A company makes that 500,000 vehicles. We need to go after the OEMs that have the biggest gravity in this industry. That's how you win, right? So our focus is going to be, if the OEM we're going to that has more volume and we have to use their car for a demo, that's what we're going to do, right? That's where you want to invest your money, right? So it's not like, that's more, I apologize, I'm not saying anything to do, that's vanity, right? If you want to be humble, if you want to be successful, focus on what's important, right? And put the vanity aside. You're not going to convince people by buying their car and putting it inside. You can convince people by showing how your technology is actually going to solve their problem faster and cheaper than anything else. That's it.
Thank you. So I look for Mercedes as OEM.
They're all going to be there. These are, when we bought Aveo, there's all these cars that we have. Again, that was another thing. Is there an Easter egg there? No, those are cars that Aveo already had. So we put it on the one that was available. That's it. There's nothing magic about this stuff. There's a bunch of cars in the fleet now in the 2 countries. And we have 2 Jeeps and we have a bunch of other cars. And I think there's several cars, like 12 cars that Aveo had. And there are different cars in the fleet. You'll see all different cars. It means nothing. It just means the fleet that's been invested in, and those are the assets that transfer over, and we're not buying new vehicles. So we're not spending money on that stuff. We're spending it on engineers. That's what's needed to grow the company. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Bordner, long-time investor, Anubhav, Sumit. Good to see you guys. Thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. And I think the whole Microvision team, because everything's going great today. There's always a lot of work behind the scenes when things go smoothly. As an investor, I think we all probably to some degree look at the product and especially in an emerging market, right? What's going to happen? There's could be new technologies that come along, et cetera. I think there's been some mudslinging that's gone on more and more recently, right? And I think the competition has had a few things that they sort of try to highlight with Microvision's Maven specifically. And I'll just rattle off a few of them and if you could address them. So one is the FOV range is too small, 20 degrees. So they say the OEMs require, I don't know what the number is, 100 degrees or something, but they say it won't work. They say,
let's go step by step.
Okay.
Let's not match it up.
Yeah, okay.
That's 20 degrees at far field.
Right.
100 degrees in near field. So a company that has no done any new LiDAR can make that. So they don't know what they're talking about, right? Do I get on a press release and talk about that? Why would I give credibility to somebody that's fighting their way to get to where we are already? I have gone on the record to say every RFQ requires dynamic view LiDAR. Not a single one that is out there that has that. So you deduce whatever you want to, there's no Easter egg in that one. You deduce whatever you want to deduce from that comment, right? So anybody that says that, 20 degrees at 200 meters out, that's like a 6-lane highway, 8-lane highway, right? You don't want to fire lasers off like, 500 meters on the either side of it, right? But the dynamic view LiDAR is something that we do that, they're still working on, and it's going to take them years to get there, and we have real patents on it. So I, that one is just, like I just rolled my eyes on that one is because that's just a way to confuse, getting on StockWits or sometimes, some of the other subreddits, right? People have this tendency of trying to confuse, the matter, right? The matter is pretty simple. I mean, that's why I wanted to do the drive for you guys that the OEMs get. You could be technical, you could be non-technical, but humans have a reaction when they get in the car. They're like, oh, I get it. Like some of you that get inside, you may have said, oh, I get it now. You don't know exactly what you saw. I can tell you what you saw, but you kind of get it, right? Your intuition tells you, like, I see I can see exactly like I would see with my eyes, and it's actually better and further out, right? So that's why I don't really comment on that, is because it's sort of like we're above that. Not in an arrogant way, above as in like, I know that they're working towards this, and that's not where they are. That's a fact, because you guys have been to their booths at CES, you've seen their demos. If to show a very high resolution, like 14 million points per second that we have, if somebody is actually collecting video in super resolution at 10 hertz and only shows you near field in Paris, and then speeds up the video to 30 hertz to say I have a 30 hertz system. They don't say they have 30 hertz system, they say the video is 30 hertz. So what do I do? Like, do I spend all my time to every press release to talk about how this person's doing that? We don't have to do that. They have to catch up to us, so let them waste their time.
Okay. Just a follow up to that 20 degree. So you said it earlier, right? That the concentration of points at that range is more important than the spread out points at 100.
No, it's more than that. It is that lasers heat up. The reliability of the entire LiDAR industry is going to be dependent upon how you manage lasers. We have significant amount of experience managing lasers. This is a really big thing. So it's not just the MEMS, it's not just the other digital part, it's how to manage the laser. The laser module is where analog ASIC goes. It's a very, very important piece. Okay? Why would you fire off lasers half a kilometer off the road? You don't want to do that. You want to concentrate it on the road where you're driving. We have that feature. So the dynamic LiDAR is more important, more valuable than you can imagine.
To follow up on that, so the one thing that I don't fully understand, and maybe it's not all solved yet, I don't know, but when the car is driving down the road and the LiDAR is pointing 200 meters, 250 meters, and there's a curve in the road, doesn't the LiDAR need to look down the curve?
No. So when you think about the 20-degree field of view, it's beyond what so you can go online and you can look at how highways are built. So a 3-lane highway that supports a certain velocity can only have a certain curve. All right? So the 20-degree field of view was not just made up. It actually incorporates enough margins so you can see around the bend. But it's 250 meters out. You have so many seconds to achieve that. So therefore, as you're going to be turning, you have more than enough margin to see what's around the curve. Okay? You're not making these sharp turns, right? On highways, you think about highways, right? They make turns, but whenever they have sharp turns, they slow down the velocity because it's based on speed. Highways are designed based on a certain maximum speed they can support. So when you go to Germany, when I drive in Germany, you go on the Autobahn, the sections that are unlimited, they're just like a straight shot. If you have good alignment, you don't even have to use it. But anytime there's curves coming, they slow you down. So this is not just us. Universally, all over the world, every highway is built this way.
Another argument, again, these aren't my arguments, these are competitors' arguments, is...
Don't make their arguments for you.
Well, no, give you an opportunity to respond to these. Right?
Sure.
So the Maven doesn't deal with black or low reflectivity very well.
Okay. That's a statement that somebody's making, but there's no basis for that. Any OEM that's going to evaluate this, they have their targets, 10% reflectance, 5% reflectance, tires, this shapes, right? It's going to go through that qualification. That's why the FKA question is important. Instead of all this hyperbole that other people create about technology, somebody's going to standardize how things are going to get measured. And we're going to have the same exact thing. Our system team is going to work on that. Our optics team is going to work on that. And, they're going to provide what's needed, but that statement has no basis in physics.
Okay.
So people can have opinions, but physics is still physics.
And the last one in this sort of area is and this is a weird one, I think, but that you have the dynamic view LiDAR. You've explained how important that is. You have the short, the medium, the long term, and that it's not, they aren't running at 30 hertz, they're only 10 hertz each.
That is true.
Oh, okay.
That is true. 30 hertz is the system. So if I was to put all 30 hertz in a single field of view, in near field would be like what, Chris? 24 million points or some crazy number like that, right? Just knocks you out. Mid and far, but that's the speed of light and how many pulses we can have in flight. Okay? So when RFQs happen that have only 2 fields of view, then we'll have 15 and 15. But the overall system is 30, right? So when you think about other people's system, they're not at 30 hertz. So when they have this dynamic view, they could be lower than 10 hertz in each one of those, but we're going to be significantly much higher density. But another way to think about it is, once let's say you have data collection happening and somebody's, let's say, driving over there and that cluster is identified, then you're tracking them frame to frame, right? So therefore you can scan, come back, and you have to know where they're going to be and predicting, and you have to just scan and get back to that point faster. When you have a 30 hertz system, you're able to cycle through that faster. Yeah. So yeah, again, it's people that are slightly informed, but they really haven't really thought about the problem. They don't ask a really important question, so I appreciate you asking the question. But it is something that you don't have, like you sat in the car. If you have taken the ride, can you tell the difference? That's a dynamic view LiDAR that you saw there. Did you see any gaps? It was continuous, wasn't it? Guys? And when the car was shifting, the car shift in the view was happening at the same time. So really there's no holes, right? So this is just hyperbole.
Okay. One more. Microvision's point cloud is blurry.
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't drink, by the way, guys, so I see a big shark, so I mean, you can see blurry, but I don't see anything blurry in there. I think about you processing the point cloud really fast. The important thing is you can put a bunch of filtering in to reduce the, make it look at any certain way. But that's a human way to think about it. Because your eyes is but a computer doesn't look at it that way. It needs data as fast as possible. It will most likely take a little bit more noise because if they can get the data faster, they want to control the car. So again, can we make it like perfectly beautiful like that? Yeah, you'll see demos that we're going to do that by sometime, right? But that's again demo. But I can assure you that when you think about our customers, sometimes they may care about latency. We can go faster, right? So it's not, again, there's no limitation in the technology. There's no limitation in the physics. It's the amount of time we want to spend. But what we have is gives a massive amount of data point cloud, low resolution, very, very fast. I mean, it's a massive pipe of data coming out. That's actually important for somebody to write their perception software.
Okay, good. And one question, changing gears here a little bit. How have the OEMs reacted to the IBO acquisition?
Very positively. I think, we've been showing Microvision, showcasing them to a long time. They love the technology, but it's like anything else. You feel more comfortable because the IBO team has a lot of experience developing LiDAR. I mean, they're the only ones that have actually developed one and launched one. Nobody else has done that, actually, right? So the combination of the two teams, it was clear that they're very, very innovative, the two companies combined. As I mentioned in the last earnings call, the RFQ, RFI cycle has completely changed because now we get RFQ, RFI cycles for both flash-based and MEMS. It's the only LiDAR company that can provide all their LiDAR needs. It's a one-stop shop for the first time. No other company has multiple technology nodes. Then we also have perception that we can offer as part of it. Other companies do different things, but mature perception is what IBO had created. So no, my IBO team is incredibly productive, work very, very hard. I love these guys. They're really, really good. And all the investors should be very, very excited about the IBO team in Hamburg. You guys really should be. They're great. They really are great. But these things have been created, but it's the first time for an OEM, all those things are in one place with a silicon strategy and a business strategy that kind of makes sense to them. That this company will be around for 10 years because we're building it in a more conservative way, which is what they like. These are very old, very conservative companies. They like high tech, but they don't want the risk of coming up and down. So we have to build a stability around the things that we talked about. So I think, I would say, since we've announced the agreement, right, it has accelerated things, even just last week of, something very, very big came across, which was, pretty much clear to us that it was because of, the IBO Microvision combination. Our balance sheet, their technology, Maven, perception, everything all in one. So it's, so it's been very, very good.
Going to go to the second row here.
John McLean. I want to thank you guys for this Investor Day. It's been great so far. I just have a question. It's been partially answered, but I go back to Anubhav's comment on how the shorts and their behaviors based on a algorithm. And I wanted to maybe dig on that just a little bit, especially, as we're all looking at the LiDAR sector, not just Microvision, but, a lot of the companies have just been beaten down pretty heavily with super high, short volumes. And I guess I think of it maybe as a game of chess and kind of wondering if, and by the way, I also want to make one more comment, which is I'm super glad that you guys don't worry about that much and just focus on the execution, because you can't really do anything about it. But I'm interested to know if you have people that look or try to understand the ultimate strategy of these hedge funds. Are they trying to sort of narrow the field by running some competitors out of business because they want consolidation? Are they looking at companies that have low cash, so they're trying to, get their share price so low that when they do, have 100 million shares that come on board, they won't get very much money for them? I'm wondering if Microvision, and not yourselves, has, the investment banks or the support that tries to think about what these hedge funds are trying to do, so you can think about how Microvision can have the strategy to bridge that gap that we're talking about between now, which is the RFQ year, and 2026, when that revenue starts coming in. Is there thoughts about that, or do you have somebody else who is trying to get into the minds of these hedge funds?
Yeah, this is my wheelhouse. So you're right. What has happened is the SPACs opened up this window, this huge window for these shorts to actually prey upon companies. They actually walked right into the trap. Promising lofty projection, they knew that they were going to miss it. And I think that's what you're saying. So you're right. We have seen LiDAR companies falling off the map. So I think you know who I'm talking about. And I think this will happen even in the next 6 to 12 months. Why? Because there are companies like that are valued 50% of their cash. That tells you, that's a very telltale sign, because that tells you these shorts are betting that these companies really don't have any future, and that's why they are valuing them below the market value of their cash. And I think what this will entail is two things, like how do you sort of, and again, I think I've said this as well, when you are rational and you behave in a traditional public way, a public company way, that's the only way to counter this, right? That's the only way you counter shorts, because they know we're going to deliver what we have promised and not the other way around. So obviously that's how you kill the shorts. And I think what you'll see in the next 6 to 12 months, a bunch of these companies will go off the map because of the same reason, because the shorts know that, hey, there's a problem here. The second way to address it is, yes, since the price is still a couple of years out, I keep saying that's how you bridge the gap. The way you bridge the gap is bringing in revenues from the non-auto sector and the high contribution margin validation software, because that's what is ultimately differentiating us from the rest of the peers, because this is what they don't have. Because I think, as Sumit described, we have become this one-stop LiDAR shop by offering Maven, Movia, and Mosaic, which is a three-legged stool, in my mind, which actually de-risks the business. And hence, that's the way to answer these shorts. There is no magical wand that I can wave and, kill all the shorts tomorrow. But I keep saying that that's how you do it. Every quarter, we come out with something and beat it. And that's how you say, okay, these guys are going to do it. That's how the algorithm will be. That's how you fool the algorithm, right? That's how you break the algos. And I think that's sort of how I feel the industry will transform, the LiDAR industry in particular, of, the wheat shall be separated from the chaff.
Adam, you have a question?
Yeah, so to follow up on what I was saying, with the, you got it. Yeah, so we're kind of in this mode where anyone can say anything and it's very confusing. So at some point in the near term, you're going to have some RFQ wins, we would assume, epic wins, your word. How are you positioning the company for growth at that point? Because we'll be in a different space, be in a different place at that point. So we'll have a win. That win will come with a story from some OEMs who've seen something in your technology that they didn't see elsewhere.
a lot of those things you're keeping close to the vest, which is a very difficult position to be in. So at some point, as these wins come in, you're going to be in a very different position. Hopefully one to talk about what OEMs have seen, to crow a little bit about the competitive advantage. And take this authorization and move it into areas that spur growth. So I'm just kind of wondering what your perspective is on at what pivot point in the near term do we start to focus on growth? What does that mean, and how does that change your approach in what you say and what you do?
I'll tell you exactly how I'm going to behave, and I'm going to have the company behave at that point. This has to be clear to all of us, actually. Nothing really changes. What you have to do is you have to accelerate from that. You do not sit back and pop over the champagne and say, hey, look what we got. You don't crow about it. Get on with the work, which is what? There's 60 OEMs out there. How much penetration do you get? How fast? So when you have that, when you have that validation behind you, you need to accelerate, because other people have to realize, well, why did this if let's say it was somebody big and powerful, or somebody that's really respected as an OEM, different tiers of OEM as well. How much penetration you get from that news? So sitting around, we didn't have to go through a de-SPAC. A lot of those guys had to do those kind of deals to just go through the de-SPACing process, right? And since then, not a whole lot has happened, right? They're still working on their product, their technology. There's a lot of marketing, but there's nothing of substance. So yeah, their stuff goes up, stuff comes down. So if you are a long-time investor, you would ride it out, because the big prize comes in when you own 80% of the market and you do not spend billions and billions and billions of dollars that they may have to raise to get to that point. You know what I mean? That's the difference, right? So yeah, if that day comes in, you're not going to see the company just go back and start spending $10, $20 million on marketing in CES. That's a waste. I think you saw, like, we're so humble about how much we spend at CES and in Munich. We're going to just accelerate and focus our resources and our passion towards the next win, because you need to get to a certain critical mass of those people, those OEM deals, and grow the engineering team beyond what we have right now to meet their needs. And now you're going to be around for a long period of time. You brought stability to this business and to those OEMs. That's what's going to happen. And so yeah, we're not going to spend too much on marketing. No, we're going to spend money in marketing. I'm joking, but the point is, I don't want people, like, somebody had actually sent me an email on LinkedIn a while back saying, why don't you spend like 10, 15 million on marketing? Would that accelerate? I'm like, 10, 15 million? I mean, I think some of you guys would have a guillotine out there. You'd probably kill me if I did that.
Well, it was less a marketing question than it was about, you're having to sit on a lot of things that you feel you don't want to give away to your competitors. But once you're in the market, once you have some RFQ wins, those things are.
No, you talked about that. Of course, you talk about like if there's a certain configuration that won it, like let's say there's a certain configuration of dynamic view LiDAR won it. Yeah, you talk about that, right? But the other things that are in there that could be done that nobody has, we will not talk about, because if there's a win specifically, then there'll be a data sheet. Like there's a data sheet for the product there, because that went to C sample. It's a static view, static number of pixels, easy to write data sheet. We can do a lot of things with dynamic view. I would have to write a ton of different data sheets, but I'm telling everybody else what my technology can do, which is what they want to know. Now, if you think about, why am I so excited about the validation software? Why Anubhav and I have talked about this, why we're so excited. Yes, it brings margin. Yes, it brings revenue to the company. Very, very important. You try to break the algo that way. Great. But the real thing is, we know about what future perception needs those OEMs have. We will know well in advance of anybody else of what to build and what not to build. Right? Think about that market intelligence. That by itself is worth the deal. Right? Like you will never be surprised. Like if you think about it, if you can be at a company that will not be surprised by the OEM that is a slow-moving industry, what they're going to want, what their demands will be in the future, and you know that years in advance of your competition, that is unbelievable. Right? That's a great value.
Well, that's one of the most valuable things I think I've come away with this morning, is really understanding that in a way I hadn't understood before. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, 2019, we got that from Maven. With the new acquisition, with the perception development, the validation software development, we're gonna just know what we have to do years in advance. So we're not gonna be talking about a redesign, because if we keep evaluating everything, it looks like, man, we are way ahead of there. So then we can focus our resources to other things to grow the business. You know what I mean? That's an advantage that we have that nobody else has. So I don't have to do a 360-degree LiDAR or something like that to get investors excited. I'm saying, like, wait a minute, I got something that what I've invested, we're going to keep winning, and let me show you how we're going to win.
Yeah, that's important, and to me, that's been a disconnect for me. I don't think investors have seen that really clearly, because there's only so much you can say. You don't want to give it away. I get that part, but I think I understand where you're coming from now a little better and way ahead before. But
Yeah, but if I can just add, it's always easier to scale up, right? See, that's the advantage of being, having one of the lowest cash burn in the industry. We don't have to scale down. Because again, people are spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year in OpEx. We're way below that. And I think because I think your question is, when these wins happen, because when it rains, it pours. And I think your question was, if I understood correctly, how can you scale the business at that time? And that I think if you look at this, IBO acquisition was a perfect example. We went from 100 to 350 for paying, a value which was way more than what we got from the IBO engineers and the talent pool. And I think that's one of the ways as well that, when, there would be times, when you have multiple wins, that's how you scale the business. Because again, you're already one of the lowest in the industry. And I think what the OEMs need is your ability, and I think this goes back to the question of why 100 million, why not 200 million, why not a different number? This is what, it's the elasticity that the company are evaluating. How quickly, how fast can you go from where you are today? And I think that's why we are positioning the company so that it can move up and down as and when needed.
Do they see your fabless approach as a benefit as opposed to someone taking capital to go build a factory or a multiple factory scenario?
Yeah, I think I've been in several meetings where they definitely compliment that the strategy kind of makes sense. Because why would you actually build your own fab? We're willing to work with a traditional tier 1 or a CM. We're not saying things that incongruent things to them. Like the overall thing we're proposing has lower risk because it's a model that they know, right? Like silicon companies do a really good job at processing wafers. My guys do a really good job at actually developing the technology, right? And they work with the fab. We're going to work with manufacturing partners. We're going to work with automation companies. But guess what? Those are not, those are things we show people how to make the device, but somebody else can manufacture it. So in that sense, we definitely get a lot of compliment, not a lot, but we definitely get acknowledged as in hey, that's really good. That really makes sense. And it shows the credibility that, we're thinking in line with the way they would want to see the business for a decade. Just don't forget that. We'll have this win, the big moment, all of you guys will celebrate, we'll celebrate a little bit, but it's not over. But then comes the hard work of being a sustainable company. Now, if you think about some of the, everybody talks about, hey, why doesn't somebody acquire vertical? If you build a strong business that looks like it's going to be for a long time, that's the value of the company. Then you are valuable, significantly more than what your revenues would be. You'll have huge multiples, right? You can talk about valuation like you did in the spotlight last year. You can think about it, right? That's what you have to build up.
Which makes the most sense to me. I haven't looked at strategic alternatives for a while, understanding what you're trying to accomplish. So, and it looks like you're on the verge of it. So,
yeah, I think I mentioned this in my last thought article on this as well, because sinking in capital to become a tier 1 is an extremely difficult task. It will require hundreds of millions of dollars, and it will require qualification from OEMs, which they have been doing forever. So I think that's sort of why we want to make sure that when companies are marketing, we understand as an investor audience, what is the exact difference between being a tier 1 or partnering with a tier 1 or having a manufacturing partner. Because this triangular relationship is extremely critical, because I think at the end of the day, developing or building a facility from scratch will require huge amounts of capital and huge amounts of experience and talent to get to the level of automotive grade qualifications by the OEMs. And I think that's what Sumit's mentioning, the acknowledgement of that strategy makes sense, because that will sort of make the management not focus on the product, but rather get into the production and the manufacturing business, which has a completely different dynamic than the business that we have. And sorry, I'm keep going back to Mobileye. I think this is sort of what they demonstrated. Again, it's a comp that has been established in the industry. They have shown that that's how this model works. And I think that sort of is a very good example of how businesses are built when they are really built thoughtfully.
Because there's a cost benefit to using stuff that you can attain very easily, like cameras Mobileye uses, or the lasers, or all the simple things you use. If you had to build a factory, you would be at $500 a unit. You'd probably be at $1,000 a unit.
And your dilution would be significantly higher. Yeah. So if you went public through a D-SPAC, you raised a bunch of capital, but it's already been promised for things. And then how do you tell an OEM that wants a conservative company that's going to deliver what they say, and you're not able to raise capital on these crazy things? So being very meticulous about how much you spend, what we spend on, show the discipline of a typical company, right, is actually very important to this equation.
Yeah, I think you can see that happening now within other companies in the sector, and you're starting to see evaluations happen based on the actual cost of building the unit, which is a first. That hasn't really happened until the last couple of months.
So anybody saying that it's going to be $1,000 OEM's willing to pay, I can tell you, I mean, without a shadow in a second, that is absolutely not true. You know, they're trying to achieve $1,000. Absolutely not true. And I think one of the analysts, I think I read a report, I think it's somewhere, I forget where it was, and they were saying that even this analyst was saying for that company, like, that is not going to happen. This is an industry that every dollar they spend, they know what the multiple is by the time they deliver to a customer. That is not going to happen. It's been well established what this LiDAR target has to be. Absolutely, yeah. And the one-box solution is very, very important.
Get it. Thank you.
And first of all, I'd like to say, like, I'm very fortunate that I have a really great team. So a lot of the things that I share with you is because they've created it. So in that sense, I'm like more of a spokesman. I drive the product a little bit, but you know, I want to just acknowledge the team that works incredibly hard to get us here.
Portends that you would think that competition would need to ultimately go down that road. Not that it's that easy to do, not that you can flip a switch and make it happen.
The mistake, I mean, who am I to talk about somebody else's mistake, but I can say that from a strategy standpoint, if I just go by what public comments people make, they're not acting like good engineers or good people that know how to develop technology. You know, you have to speak the truth about really what is going to happen in the future. Like, you know, yeah, I'll take the credit for the fact that years ago I said to you guys, we're not going to do autonomous driving, we're going to do ADAS. Because yeah, when you think about it, that was a bigger market. And I clearly even state that right now, that a lot of those guys, it starts with the top people understanding what strategy has to be deployed. You can't be arrogant. You know, you have to think about business and what it is, and think about your customers first. They're telling you what they're willing to accept. You're not going to get them to accept a autonomous driving software stack and completely change the way they do the business. That's not going to happen. Argo's a great example. Great company, very smart engineers. Where did it go? The fault was not in the engineers, absolutely not. It was the strategy was wrong, right? So it comes down to strategy. Therefore, yeah, we spend a lot of time, you know, making sure our strategy is correct and in line with what the future will be. And I do not use a single night of sleep thinking that my competitors eventually are going to start saying the same thing we're saying right now. And that's the vindication. So if we have a design win, if we get something done, right, guess what? Everybody will change their tune and start, this is going to be the victory path. But what we did not do is when they were getting their small victories early on, right, we did not start making the product based on what they were doing just to gin up a story, get some money, and get that done. That would not have been good stewards of the technology, right? I mean, you guys have been in this stock for a long time. A lot of these engineers have worked on these companies for much longer. It's kind of important for me to think about, like, if you build something, how is it going to be sustainable for a long time? And you really get the value of what was invented.
Follow-up question. The Mosaic software, you know, you've articulated well, and did a press release for Jaguar Land Rover a couple weeks ago. It seemed like there was intimated that, what I perceived, intimated that maybe the reference sensor that might go with that software could be Movia or Maven. Is that sort of what?
That's where you're thinking. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I think, like, you know, if you think about those hardware sales, they're incremental, right? You're going to sell just so many validation ground truth vehicles. Certainly, we're going to have a vehicle at someday which is going to have Maven. You know, if it's such an awesome thing, you want to build a full stack and you want to be able to offer that. But right now, like Andy said, like, you know, people have like reactions. They want to say, well, you know what, that's great, but you know what, I'm going to use my own sensor. Just give me the software. Great. Why would we do that? Well, we want to know what their perception needs are, so you know what, we can make our products better, right? So we're okay with that. So if you think about the Mosaic business, right, we are going to support as an independent business. We're going to innovate. Like if they say, like, hey, this other LiDAR, make sure you support that. We're going to do that. Absolutely. Absolutely, right? We're going to let the OEMs decide what they need. But what we can get out of it is just, you know, real market intelligence of, are we still on track? You know, can I say the word best in class now, and it holds true for many, many years to come? I mean, that's, you know, that's it, right? If you can predict the future, you look like an oracle, but it is, nobody's an oracle. It is because you have inside information. Every business that does that, they have some hook someplace, and they can figure out what the market will do in the future, and they get to say some stuff, and if it comes true, you feel like these guys must know what they're doing. I'm actually telling you guys how we get the information. I'm telling you where the hook is. We met them in 2019, we started finding things out for Maven. Maven is in good shape. Mosaic will make sure Maven is in good shape for a long time, and Movia is in good shape for a long time. So this is, I mean, I'm glad that we're at this company working together.
Alex, you again. There were some for the proxy, there were some board member changes. Savell is not up for re-election, and Jeffrey Earps, he's the newer person. So there are some discussions about, Jeff's previous history with NVIDIA. So maybe, is there something there? Who knows? I don't know if you can comment on that.
I can comment on that.
Okay. And why is Savell leaving? If we're not focusing on NED anymore, or the AR, not for now. Web Spitzer was obviously very well respected, but it's not something that we are focusing on. The Savell is from the Continental and also the driving type of background. So what's the board makeup strategy on that?
So the board makeup is up to the chairman of the board and what's happening on the board. It's an independent board that is representing where we are going. I would not read too much into it. I think Jeff, we met. I think, just like we have great employees in the company, we're fortunate enough to have great independent board members that are willing to take their time and spend it on our board and make us better, give us insight and give us guidance to make the company better. I think Brian Turner has been on the board for a long time. He's gone through a lot of things that you guys experienced. He's put his own money in the company. We have to respect that. So I think it's not, good to it's not like any kind of reality show, which is how people going out. I think the board decides what the makeup is, and I feel very fortunate. I learned a lot from them. They give us a lot of insight and guidance towards a broader thing. So we're very happy to have the board we have. So I would not read anything into it. And people come and people go. They have personal reasons. But I think as far as the company is concerned, I think it has just this is a board, 7-person board, independent board, and I think we have a very good board. Independent. We really have an independent board compared to our competition. Just go look at it, right? Just a really great makeup. I mean, there's professionals everywhere, but we have, for this industry, done a really, really good job to prepare for what comes ahead.
Just kind of follow up with that. We have a new VP of software that is on the website now, but before that, I believe Yari was the VP of software and then kind of disappeared, and
he resigned. He resigned from the company, yeah. Okay. So again,
more on the difference between, I know you talked about it before, but if you go onto some of the competitor subreddits, there's always a knock on Microvision saying, we're not class 1 certified or class 1 compliance, and that's a knock on us.
Why do you think it's a knock on us?
Because it's not certified, it's better than compliance.
Certification happens when you're shipping the product. We're at A sample right now. So you develop everything to say you're compliant. Then you have to develop a product with an OEM and get it certified at the end. When your cell phone, your iPhone is in early development, they don't get it certified. They make sure it's going to be compliant. The design is going to be compliant long term. Then they go through the development process, and when they're ready to launch it, then they go get the certification. The certification comes at the end. So I think whoever's talking, they don't know what they're talking about.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. So I'm not a software engineer. And obviously, IDEO's acquisition sounds great. The fact that it's automotive certified, etc. Now, from a non-software expert, one thing about kind of acquiring or using a very old, not old, but experienced software is that it could be bloated versus something that you can build more recently from the ground up. Kind of like the difference between Internet Explorer versus a Microsoft Edge. Now, is there some kind of that's a concern that I have, but I'm not an expert on that. Maybe you can comment.
These guys use the latest computers. They're not using 286 from the 1980s. The software we're talking about is cutting edge. I mean, anybody that develops software, and I'm not a software guy, by the way, Alex, so this is not a knock on you. It's me also. I'm learning a lot. I think the tools we're using are, phenomenal. So don't think about software in that sense that it is some executable file that just goes out. It's something that's maintained. It's something that we keep investing to make better. Okay. I think I've said that it's beyond what people have right now. Nobody's actually even showed the KPIs they have. So that is not a concern that anybody should have. Just like Maven has more than what anybody's asking for. It's cutting edge, right? So it's long in the tooth for some people because it's the same thing. But what's in there, it's so contemporary, it's going to be many years before it's really long in the tooth. The software is not that way, right? It's something that has to be developed, keep investing into it, adapt it for Maven, perfected for something like putting inside a silicon chip, there's a bunch of investment that still goes on in the software, and all the tools these guys use are totally contemporary.
Okay. It's my last one. The difference, there's been some discussion regarding silicon and silicon carbide. Is there any benefit to using silicon carbide, and do we use it on the Maven at all?
No. We make our MEMS. MEMS are silicon wafer. I didn't bring one today, I forgot that, but we want to show you the wafer. But we have wafers that are done by wafer fabs. Our chips are made by analog chips with analog fabs and digital there. So silicon carbide, I think that's more about battery power converters, right? But we use the most, the best automotive nodes that are available right now. So I think like when the A16 actually goes out there and finds that, they benchmark nodes and technologies that are going to be run for a long time, and that's how we piggyback on it.
You notice any kind of trends in terms of the vehicles being more in the medium range, high range, and just in terms of if you were to win it, are these high volume end products, or are they more in the top end, lower volume?
I think the OEMs that we're talking about that are out there right now, we know what their fleet size is, and they're more conservative. As in, like, when they tell you a number, they're unlike some other companies we worked in the past. They don't give you this big number and it's like 1/10 of that. Right? What's the biggest complaint about the 2017 contract? A number was given, we worked out a deal, and not even 1/10 of that has shipped right now, right? But these guys are, they are really serious business people, right? So they give you volume, the size of their fleet, that it's going to be rolling out into vehicles definitely beyond their premium vehicles. So, and if you think about these OEMs, when they talk about it publicly, they're talking about their EV strategy. And as I've said always, when EV starts rolling out, ADAS is going to be the big hook of like, why is this car more valuable? There's less parts, there's no transmission, there's no engine. How do you sell it? You can't sell it because you have more horsepower, right? Pretty much all the EV vehicles have like significantly higher performance. They're great to drive. Okay, well, how are you going to sell it? Well, they're going to have some ADAS features that are going to be significant level of safety beyond what has ever been there. But the volumes that you talk about that these these OEMs are discussing, it certainly is going to be deployed into a wider fleet, and that's the why I'm excited about what 2023 represents for the RFQs that we have.
Thank you.
Yes, Jack.
The notion of novel marketing campaigns as time goes on around automotive safety, that resonates heavily with me, and I often dream of the day where they say Microvision inside, much like Intel inside. That would be really cool. That would be a really cool thing. Do you guys have any conversations around, or hear any talk around OEMs and how they plan to market ADAS as a key feature? And
I can't comment on anybody's marketing strategy, especially we're not aware of anything that's shared with us. But I think I'm just going to give you my general view of the space. I think there's a reason why we call it safe mobility at the speed of light. There's a very specific reason for that. Because technology for people is scary. They don't understand how it works. Like Ty is always worried about specs and this, right? He can't put one and one together. Like, how is OEM evaluating? And I can't tell him, so he could feel frustrated. But if you think about it, when you guys actually buy technology, you say Intel inside, you don't know what the gigahertz, what the processor is, how much RAM it has. You buy an experience, right? Technology has to melt away, and it has to be the product that you say, okay, I believe this is safe, right? So when you think about branding for this, I believe it's not going to be some big splash, something like that. It's going to be, it's safety. This is something that you want to count on. So if you want to look back when they started marketing airbags, that's the way. There was no big marketing campaign. It was just about safety, the 5-star safety rating this technology path there. It's going to be that subtle, most likely. Because, again, I love technology, our engineers love technology. We're comfortable with what we see. It's because we are intimate with it. But, my mother, who's in her late 70s, she doesn't want to hear that. She wants to hear, is this stuff safe? Like, it's got a 5-star rating, and whose name is behind that car, right? That's how it's going to be evaluated. So yeah, it's not going to be that, a moment you're looking for that, hey, we're going to the Super Bowl. That moment is not coming. But it's going to be more subtle, but it'll be more meaningful. Because, again, the revenues that comes into the business we build is what we have to evaluate. as a success point. Yeah.
So, not a tech spec question, commercial question.
You got it.
You guys, the company laid out the strategy about a year and a half ago, right? 3 pillars: the OEM, win OEM deals, work with a tier 1 as directed by the OEM, and work with silicon companies. I haven't really heard a lot about the silicon companies, and competition talks about their relationships with the silicon companies and how great it is, and it'll be able to sell more stuff. Are you talking to silicon companies?
I think about it this way, that we stated a pillar, so whenever we say something, we do it, but it'll happen at the right time, right? Because you can flail your arms and you say something, and that's what a lot of people do nowadays, right? Because the social media, they want to get attention, get a spike in the share price, and then when it dumps all the way down, they don't defend it, right? But if you do it the right way, it's going to sustain you for a longer period of time. So if you think about the partners that I'm talking about that are in the silicon, they're the ones that make the domain control and the ECU. They have very complicated businesses, and they have much more powerful businesses. Being able to think about how you connect with them long term, like how you're going to actually enable them, right? You want to get a more meaningful relationship done, and that takes time. Okay. First thing is focus on the RFPs, win it, and there'll be time for some real opportunities. Okay.
Chuck Young, Anubhav, this is for you. The 100 million shares, I know you guys have stated you don't have any near-term plans to be tapping into that or using it. What would you say would be the first use likelihood scenario for tapping into those?
So I think of this as, again, let me give that answer in technical and non-technical terms, right? So obviously, the technical answer would be general corporate purposes, but that's a bunch of words. What it means. We are looking to accelerate revenue and acquire customers faster. I think all I can say is this capital gives us the ability to pursue both these options. And that's what we're looking to do, because I think this year, if we hit our revenue targets, 10 to 15 is going to be a huge leap of jump from what happened in
12 to 15. Well, before it got 12 to 15, yes.
So it obviously is a huge jump from last year, right? So I think of this as an enabler to accelerate that, to turbocharge this growth. And I think that's what would be the first use of this capital whenever we want to use it.
Can you expound on what you mean by gain customers faster using this?
So expand in the sense that, look, at the end of the day, we're looking to accelerate this revenue. So either you sell more products or you find more customers to sell that product into, right? You acquire sales channels or you build sales channels, and it's what's build versus grow, right? I think the question in front of us is how can we demonstrate between now and then the trajectory, because we have an impressive trajectory, can we further accelerate that trajectory and further instill even more confidence in the institutional investors, who are looking at the holistic LiDAR space. Because I think, as Adam pointed out earlier, I think because of what I call it the wreckage on the highway because of the SPACs, a lot of people have lost their confidence in the LiDAR market. But if you demonstrate that, I think it's very easy to attract those investors back because they will see the trajectory. Because in my mind, the game has already been set, what could the valuation of any successful company could be. And again, it's going to be a very easy decision for these institutional investors to come in and partner with a company that is executing on its strategy to accelerate the growth.
But more think about it, it's not capital, as in it's gunpowder. Last time we got 60 million, we've only used what, 24 approximately million, right? You want to have the right gunpowder ready when the market starts, right? You want to be opportunistic. But the goal, as I mentioned, is you want to own the segment. You don't want to just have a small piece of it, just get one win and say, hey, you know what, Miller time, right? It's more like, no, you want to own all of it, as much of it as possible, right? You want to accelerate that, you want to have enough gunpowder, for that. And people have to believe you're going to be around in a more sustainable manner to do that. I think that's what Anubhav wants to highlight is when he says brick by brick building business. I think as you guys reflect on this day, that's actually really powerful words. You can build a real business, right? And part of real businesses, you want to have capacity available, opportunistic. If we do not have the balance sheet strength, and some of the other things we had to do from there till now, IPA would not be part of that. And think about what value that represents to each and every one of you. long term that, I hope, after today you can feel like, hey, long term, this is gonna really be like one of the best deals that we did to turn the ship around. It's not just making Maven. Maven would have been great, but this really took us to another level, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be opportunistic, right?
Right. Well, keep saying 80% of the market. I like those words.
No, I think anybody that's in this space, if that's not what they're dreaming, then they're just completely missing the spot. Then they're a professional CEO. I'm not the founder of this company, but sometimes like the amount of energy that all of us spend, every employee in the company spends, you could say there's like 350 founders in the company. People work way harder than we pay them. I assure you on that one, right? So yeah, I know everybody worries about OpEx, right? But people are really invested in it. They're really excited about it. Yeah.
That's great.
So if not going to win at all, why do it?
I have another question regarding RFQs. Yeah. And I'm not a technical guy, but it's my understanding that creating the digital ASIC is a very capital-intensive project. Takes a lot of money, takes a lot of work. And you've already stated you expect to get at least one design win this year. Is one design win enough to start that investment in a digital ASIC, or do you want to wait and get 2 or 3 more?
No. It's required to get the first. So we're going to start. The work is going to start, right? So yeah, you're spending the money because you expect that it's around the corner. But once it's done, the other ones that you're thinking about as you think about longer term, you have a product that's going to qualification, and that's valuable. You want to make sure what's in there, supports multiple customers, so you can grow customers without having to do every year new digital ASIC. And because of that, a lot of people that did not know all the features to put inside the product, perhaps they are putting their sensor model in an ECU outside, and they don't talk about the digital ASIC. Riddle me that, right? I think but nobody asked them that, right? Because they can't talk about a digital ASIC strategy because they have none. Because they don't want to do it, because they don't know all the features. This is, again, market intelligence from our part that allows us to actually commit to a very expensive digital ASIC program that I believe very strongly multiple customers will be happy and we will meet all their needs and never have to spend another one for a certain category of product. There'll be, when we put the perception inside, there'll be another category of product. For different OEMs, there's 60 OEMs globally. So the race is pretty far from over.
Great, thank you very much. And thanks again for having this. It's the first time I've been able to get in front of you guys, and I'm loving it. And I live in Duval, so.
Okay, that's great.
Let's go over here, gentlemen.
George Werner, I want to talk about our patent portfolio for a minute. We have a pretty substantial patent portfolio. Being best in class, we also are attracting potential infringement. That's my guess. Do we have any ongoing investigations or infringement potential right now that from either the United States or other countries?
We don't, and if we did, we would announce it publicly because we'd be required to. I think the patent, Drew can talk about that, but I think the public comments would reflect that. So I think we're in good shape.
Okay, and then on another aspect, being best in class, reading about various LiDARs, I just want to make certain that our LiDAR is impervious to adverse weather conditions like fog, dust, snow, rain, sleet. How does it characterize black ice on the road?
It's impervious to things that are limited by physics. So, ray-based systems always have a hard time looking through fog, any laser there, right? We're picking 905 for a very specific reason. Radars can look through fog, but they have really crappy fields of view and resolution, right? So every technology based on physics is going to have a limitation, right? So our strategy, think about sensor fusion, why? When you combine radar and LiDAR, we've expanded the spectrum within which the solution performs. Right? This is like, the electromagnetic spectrum, right? So if you think about it as a spectrum. So yeah, we're at 905, we're going to do a phenomenal amount of work, heavy lifting there. But then the software will combine radar and the part of the electromagnetic spectrum that you're talking about, expand it. So that sensor fusion is very valuable long term, right? But again, it's congruent to what would happen with an OEM. They're going to start off slowly. Before everybody wants to turn over the control of their cars in fog and rain and everything, can they just be happy in sunlight, right? So it's going to be step by step by step, but the LiDAR has to be put inside. It's a 15-year product. That you buy a car, expect to be 15 years, and they're going to send updates out there. But the LiDAR has to have all the features now that for the next 15 years they can still upgrade. So this is the model that if you think about it, when you buy a car, it comes with, let's say, 7 airbags. For the rest of the life of that car, you have 7 airbags. But this is the first time they're going to put sensors inside where new features of safety can be rolled out to you in that 15 years ownership of a car. right? So they may find other ways to monetize it. I have no idea how they'll monetize that, but this is very exciting actually, because again, your car is now a platform, right? It's an experience that you can always have.
So are there any OEMs that are actively looking at talking to you about the combination of those various radar and
I think what I've said publicly is we're developing a sensor fusion demo, and then from there on out will be a jumping point for us to discuss. You can't talk about everything is like you can't be done in PowerPoint and just orating your idea. You have to show something working. But I think the IBO team was incredibly productive. They developed something. We are bringing the focus to a product that's scalable, so we're not talking about autonomous driving. We're going to start with that demo. We're going to look at communicating to the market and our partners what could be possible in the future. As we have success in that area, then we would scale that part of the business to start producing that product. But right now it's an R&D phase.
I think there's a question right there, and then we'll come to this gentleman in the front here.
Stefan. So are OEMs sharing at all what the split will look like for EV versus gas cars for LiDAR adoption? And are you worried about the lithium supply from now going up to 2030?
I think that in their public comments, they've never distinguished, if they're, if the volumes you're talking about, that they're talking in those time frames, there'll be ICE engines around for a long time. They're not disappearing, but their fleet will start transitioning to EV. Now, this is again my belief, right? If you look at the public comments, they're not really talking about how EV is rolling out. They say things like, majority of my fleet is going to be EV by 2027, right? But the word is majority. It's, there's no qualifier for that. There's no number, right? But we sell LiDAR, and of course it works on all of them. They have to figure out what models, what their fleets are going to do. Lithium supply, I think those are resources that they would have to really worry about. But I think, what we care about is RFQs have specific volumes, ramps, things allowed. So, and we know the size of their fleet. We know, how much of their fleet has grown in the last 10 years, where the growth is. So you can imagine they have lots of other things that they will announce that they've not made public yet. So we can't certainly comment on that.
Thank you.
Yes, Jim Sturba again. I want to know if you have any feel for how this will be deployed by the car manufacturers, and I assume it will probably be an optional package in the cars. And if that's so, how much would it affect my cost to buy a car with LiDAR?
The reason this $500 number is very, very important, and the volumes that we're talking about, so somebody asked me questions about the volumes, right? We can't really talk about that, but the volumes are big enough where it is probably a standard feature. These rounds of RFQs now are looking at this as a standard feature going forward. So unlike the previous deals that they've done, those were options, and not a whole lot of them sold, because those products were not ready, right? They were kind of big and they didn't have the features that were required. So you're finally talking about RFQs that are looking at a fleet, parts of their fleet, so they have to be a standard feature. And therefore, price is very, very important, because you have to have a certain price, because let's say you have a car that costs X number of dollars, and you want to upgrade that car and you want the same exact car, you don't want to pay 30% more for that previous car. You know really what kind of car you want. I have an FJ Cruiser, right? I know what that costs. Somebody offered me more than what I paid for it 12 years ago. And that's just crazy to me. But can you imagine if somebody says, oh, it's going to cost you 70 grand to have an FJ Cruiser now? That's nuts. I'm not going to buy that then. I'll buy what I can afford. Okay? So price, we don't talk enough about that. The price of the device is actually very important. I think Anubhav had talked about it a lot. And I think, if you guys want to talk about Easter eggs and stuff, forget that. This is real stuff, because those are real business models. That's very important. Those are models that we haven't just ginned up. We've really given it a lot of thought of what would be required to penetrate the market in those big numbers, if you want to own it.
Sumit.
Yes.
I think I've heard.
No, there you go.
I think I've heard comments in the past around the solution actually being able to reduce the number of sensors that OEMs would have to put in a car, and therefore, does that imply some sort of eventual cost savings going down this path for them?
So there's multiple levels of cost savings if you think about this product. When I say sensors, if you think about, you can have multiple radar that have low fields of view and overlapping. Then you can try to create that with more sensor fusion happening at a big old ECU or domain controller. So if you have a dynamic view LiDAR that covers near, mid, far fields at very, very high resolution, and it is something that you can certify, you can get it fully qualified, you don't need as many sensors, those other sensors required. You may not need them, right? I mean, OEMs will decide that, of course. Okay. Then the other part is, if you could actually put perception inside, the domain controller side, that compute goes down. So you don't need massive amount of AI compute anymore, right? So that's the premise for us. That's the, they will call it a hypothesis. That is our thesis. We believe that's what's going to happen, and that's what the team in Hamburg has created. It's very, very impressive what they've created, right? So long term, to be in more of the fleet, you have to keep reducing price. But you can't, there's a physical limit of how cheap you can make a sensor, right? Then you have to look at the overall system cost and say, hey, by the way, I have software that can further reduce the system cost for you. So your sensor price can stay where it is. So you're not in this like never-ending battle of like, go find a cheaper supplier someplace else. That's not possible because you're in a slow-moving industry. So, the level of difficulty when you say the things like $500 to $600 sensor, it's much higher than you think because you can't just go out there and keep finding cheaper and cheaper sensor component suppliers. But you have to have investments right now, R&D investments right now that long-term are going to reduce the overall system cost. And that will be compelling to our customers, we believe.
Our next question is right here.
Yeah, Brian Atchison. Are you going to incorporate over-air technology? I know once you commit to ASIC, there may be, from FPGAs, there may be difficulty, but is there going to be any variability that's built into this?
No.
No, it is.
The sensor is over-designed, has more features than they'll ever need. The hooks will be given to their computer, so their software will be over-the-air upgrades so they can deliver a new feature to you. So why is the sensor, why don't we don't talk about all the specifications, right? We don't want to tell anybody, but also it is clearly got more features than they will ever need, right? And all the hooks will be left in, and their software will enable those features as they go. But for us, it's a LiDAR sale. It's a one box solution we sell, all in, with a piece of ASIC that's qualified. Once that's qualified, they use the data stream and they do what they want to do with it. They create the customer experience, so they will do the OTA. But we are not going to be in the middle of that, and we don't want to be in the middle of that. You don't want a company that says they're going to OTA their sensor that tells you that their technology is like not up to snuff.
In the back.
I learned a lot about reflectivity today in our test drive. How will snow affect the car's ability to recognize space around it in a snowstorm? And will the system shut down in a case like that?
I believe that in ADAS system at the car level, Mike, they're going to shut down the ADAS system, right? Till they have sensor fusion that can penetrate the snow with another sensor that can actually fill in the gaps so their algorithms can continue running. Just remember, the driver experience will be controlled by the OEM. So they will decide, what is the different environmental conditions within which the feature is allowed to work. We'll be streaming the point cloud, we'll collect all the point cloud with snow, with fog and everything, whatever the quality comes in. And then there'll be radar, there'll be fusion for that, there'll be camera, there'll be fusion for that. But they have to decide in what environmental condition they want to allow it. And for that, they're going to do lots and lots of validation, lots of different sensors over a period of time. So the work here is going to continue. It's not like one and out. You have a sensor that feels like, okay, it's going to do something for them a long time. It's going to be very stable. And then they have to see from their software standpoint, what are the sensors do they have to put to expand the features they deliver? And that's going to be the big race between all the OEMs. Who can actually expand faster and provide safety, right? But again, the good news that I'm delivering to all of you guys is like we have a sensor that's way over designed for what their needs are, right? So they will have the LiDAR working. That's why such a high resolution? You don't drive through waterfalls, right? Yeah, if there's some place there's a water, part of the point cloud dropped off, you do that, but you still have so many more points available to you that it is still a useful sensor.
I'd like to pivot, if it's okay. I'd like to have Anubhav address this. I've got a group of about 37 investors, and one of the questions I get now is that 100 million share authorization is on the table. I'm all for it. I'm voting yes, but I have to convince 37 other people why this authorization is important to the company. Could you give us your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so look, I think this is really what I mentioned earlier, gives us the tools that we need as a company to get to the next level and build a business. Because I think it's very imperative, as Sumit has described, that we have a very fantastic piece of technology, but can we build a business around? And that's the entire focus of this conversation and our strategy. Because I think a lot of the people talk about, fancy, cool tech. But again, going back, can you monetize that technology and build a sustainable business which is growing and also yielding cash flow? Because ultimately, I want to be a traditional public company. We want to be a traditional public company where we reduce the cost of capital, right? Which is going from the equity all the way down to fixed income to debt. That's what the goal of any public company should be, which is emerging from this phase, from an R&D to a product company to a business that can be built around this. So this authorization is really essentially the tools that we need to get from here to the next level. So hope that sort of, helps you identify why, and I think the other thing that I would say is the financial discipline of the company, and again, by virtue of being a traditional public company and having decades, again, if you think about it, we have been around for 50 plus years, including IBIT. That sets us apart from anybody else who's like, less than 5-10 years ago, they were formed. And I think that's sort of what essentially demonstrates that how disciplined the company has been in using the resources that were always given to this company and what we plan to do in the future as well.
This question, I'm sure I'd like to at least hear an answer. Certainly the company, based on my knowledge of how the market works with public companies, that you'd have to raise more capital mid to the latter part of the year. You wouldn't want to wait any longer than that. Do you anticipate being able to sell into the market at a much higher share price based on where we are in our development process?
Look, like I said, I don't think I can comment on when and what the share price is going to be, right? Because I think at this point, let me tell you one of the few levers that we have in terms of, the visibility through the next year, right? It's really the revenues that are going to come in, especially the revenues from the software, which are actually, what is called the commit to consume model. So where we get the revenue with the cash before, and then we bleed it down into the P&L as and when the customer uses the software. That itself, in my mind, is a very big driver to fuel the growth of the company and the OpEx of the company in the next 6 to 12 months. On top of that, I also talked about the NRE programs with the OEMs as well, because whenever you are doing a customization, and I think as Sumit talked about, OEMs might want to have different features enabled or disabled in their custom product. This is where we expect, because that would mean we're going to have to spend man hours to do that. So that itself is also going to add to some of the cash coffers of the company to fuel the OpEx between now and the next 12 to 18 months. And like I said, raising capital, we have been very strategic about this in the past, because I think that's what, even when the entire industry, especially fueled by the SPACs, the stocks were trading all-time high for everybody else. I think you could have seen that how prudent the company has been and how strategic the company had been at that time. And then we sort of again demonstrated that for the IBO acquisition, we only sort of raised what we needed to fund the acquisition, because I think it ultimately makes us very opportunistic. As and when the opportunities present themselves, we're going to make sure every dollar goes way further out than what has been spent or raised. And I think that's sort of what I meant by crashing the algos, because that's how you demonstrate prudence and also beating what we have said in terms of setting the expectations that we are setting for the market.
And that's why I mentioned, I had a question about whether or not we're going to be able to name names, and I thought it was a great answer. But I think, again, validation in terms of building confidence and trust in the market and beating the algos, I think that's a critical goal for the company, to be able to name names.
And the benefit it has, when you see that other partners that actually went public with their partnerships, right? OEMs want that, because for the first time they have to deal with high-tech companies that have developed something that they need. Typically they work with tier one company, like a company, a typical tier one would not, as I said, somebody is not going to, invest $500 million over 10 years to go develop technology like this. The conventional business, they just look at revenues for the next quarter. So they have to deal with technology companies, and part of that technology company is that they have to be able to say, I have a partnership with this XYZ. So validation is part of some of these deals that we do.
So we have some leverage.
Absolutely. Of course, this is unique than what we had ever in the past. In the past, as I said early on, we were the small company that was amazing. Same set of stuff that we're using to make the products right now. These guys had already developed it, but it was easier to match that company down because what other choice did they have, right? Because the market was narrow. They control the market. They can say whatever and they can do whatever they want. So you're better off being in a market where there's multiple customers, multiple competitors, because everybody's competing now. So this is a better place to be for us.
That's great news.
Yeah.
So I think it's a question for Anubhav. You've talked, and I'm not talking about the Mosaic software, I'm talking about the algorithms and things. And of course now, and certainly looking at putting that software really into the hardware and making that one solution. Just like to understand, like, because you said, like, okay, well, the hardware gets commoditized over time. So the price, the OEMs expect your price to keep coming down and down. But if you have software in there, you can maintain, certainly it's higher margins in software generally, but you can maintain that price, right? Can you just I'm not sure I fully grasp that aspect of how that works or how that is working in your model.
Yeah. So I think in the model that we had described, I think at the beginning of last year, the idea was, since the hardware is going to be manufactured in a partnership, obviously the hardware gross profit margins cannot be in excess of even 20-30%, because obviously that's something which again you could have commanded if you were a tier one, but like I said, it's so hard to become a tier one. So that's a place where the margins have to be much significantly lower, because that's when it's a triangular relationship between the OEM, tier one, and Microvision. The software will remain the biggest component internally for us, because that's what, if you think about it, the price is what I talked about, the 500 ASP at every device. Imagine as the production scales, our effort, because we don't have to spend any money to upgrade the software, because as Sumit described, once you're in the chip, it's done. And this price is per box. So where I was going with that is the reason why it translates into a higher margin business, because over time, every dollar that comes in drops straight to the bottom. It's like almost recovering the cost of your investment that the company has made all the way, reaping it towards the end. Does that make sense? Because ultimately, the price is fixed, but you don't have to do anything because you've already done the work.
So, buy LiDAR, there's a hardware, there's one line item, and then they can use the point cloud by itself. That comes out of the LiDAR. That's the hardware only cost. But if you use the perception, that was also innovation, that was also investment, that's not the line item. So, there's different models, right? So I'm not saying a specific model, but we have to find a way to monetize. So you want to build a business brick by brick, but this is a lever that we have that people are not thinking about. They want to sell expensive software that goes with domain controller. As far as OEMs are concerned, they said, well, that's an executable file. Why would I pay you so much premium for that? And I would have the liability. So once you put in the silicon, you still have other opportunities to build a more successful hardware and software business.
So I think I heard two things, and I think I get it. Just to recap, see if it's right. So on the one hand, you build a new LiDAR hardware device, there's costs, right? The manufacturing costs, you're gonna have to put it together, somebody's gonna make it, and that's gonna be a real cost. And you get some margin out of that. Mm-hmm. But the software was developed, X years ago, and those costs, there's no more cost for that software on that device anymore.
No, that's not true. Okay. You have to maintain software. Like when you buy your Windows machine, there's always a Windows update, right? You have to maintain it. There's a bunch of work that's done, and you have to keep perfecting it, right? So it's not like after that is done, all the people just quit and they're gone, and we just keep selling an executable file.
That allows you to command value for that.
Of course, there's value for that. You have to maintain it. You have to do it. You have to perfect it. You have to validate it. You have to create new features, right? So you're always going to be engaged in that thing. That is going to be, a software division is going to be around for a long time. Absolutely.
Okay. And then the second part I heard that you said, as you mentioned today many times, you put that software over designed features are in the ASIC, and then you can just turn things on in the future when
not us.
They need them.
Based on the license that the OEM bought, right. They will do that.
But
so let's say they bought a license with 3 features, they pay us for, okay, that's it. Somebody buys a license for 8 features, they get that, right? So again, that's the variable part of the model, right? So the point is, I want all the engineers that are working in the company to build anything you want. We'll find a way to monetize it, but build something that solves their problem long term. They can choose to do it themselves, but if it's already created to a high level of quality like the IBM team had done or the Humber team has done, we get to monetize it. But every OEM, to be honest, truth is, they may not want to take it. They'll say, no, our team will create that. Okay, here's the point cloud. Somebody will say, I'll just take 3 features. Okay, there you go. But the point is create it, and then we find a way to monetize it.
I guess what I'm thinking though is that they could buy the 3 features today, get a license, pay it, and 2 years down the road, or 3 years down the road, or 5 years down, they might say, oh, I want to unlock these new features that are there, and then they bring it back. I mean,
I would like to live in a world where what you said is, but again, I don't want to oversay anything, right? But of course, that's the idea for building this stuff out, right? And then, but what we're being honest about is to find a way to monetize. There's no validation I can give you that we've actually agreed for somebody to do that. So the focus is, of course, that's why you want to invest in the business that will have that variable, right? Because something you already sold, perhaps you can sell a license onto that because another feature will get activated, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Right here and then.
Actually asked my question. It was exactly about monetizing other features you've already built into the ASIC at a later time for extra money.
Okay. So, I have it to you again. Look, I sometimes dream about Microvision. And that's, me too. Me too. So, you too. The thing that I keep thinking about, what is the checkmate move to get us the 80% share of the market? And obviously, resolution, dynamic range, that's all fine. But I feel like, or just kind of comment on it, like the LiDAR interference, because you can blind other LiDARs, and if there's a lot of other LiDAR companies versus a lot of cars with LiDARs, the fact that Microvision actually has a patent, has a solution to LiDAR blindness, I feel like that's a big feature. Or am I just kind of overstating?
You're not. I think the active scan locking feature, that's very important, right? But I think you're asking the question, what's the checkmate move? You're still thinking about technology is it. Technology is very important. We've already created everything that would be needed for a very long period of time. The checkmate move to get that 80%, just owning the segment is actually building a good business, something that people can count on. Like I use an example with somebody back there that when you want to renovate your house, you don't just pick the guy that can get the most exotic Italian marble for your kitchen. You want that, but a business that can actually finish the job. You understand that? So you have to build a business. That's a checkmate move. Like I can talk about tech all day long. I like doing that, but that's half the story now. The people you're talking to right now, they have businesses that have been around for 100 years. They want other businesses to behave a manner that you're going to be around, you know what you're doing. Build a business that they can actually get their brains around. It is not some hokey business model. A lot of people have asked me when I've gone to Germany, they don't understand how the D-SPAC works, and they just made a comment about it because they don't even know what that is, right? We're a traditional business. We're building out, business may sound boring, but that being boring in this environment is actually the checkmate move. Mobileye did not become what they are by just exotic features. They have a lot of exotic features. We're going to have more exotic features, absolutely. But learn how to monetize it and build a business that's sustainable. That's the checkmate move.
Right. So I understand, building a business is important, but that's in terms of barriers to entry. I feel like anyone who's kind of disciplined, has a good business mind, can do that, more or less. But in terms of technology, that to me is more like a barrier. It's the moat around what you have. So in terms of, we talked about it before, in terms of the secret sauce, and this is the secret sauce that Microvision has, which was developed 15, 20 years ago, or even more than that. Can you talk more about, I want to feel, as an investor here, I want to feel that Innoviz and Luminar and all these other guys are not comparable. Or that's how I would like to feel. But the secret sauce, without giving too much detail, can you just kind of talk more about that?
Yeah, if you think about a marathoner that wins the London Marathon, they don't say, I won this, so forever and ever and ever, I'm the greatest marathoner ever. They still have to get up and train the next day and win another one, and another one, another one, right? So if you think about technology, it's no different. You have to keep innovating, right? So the stuff that was created 15 years ago, some of it will be used right now, but there's new things that the guys create all the time. So you have to keep actually at it, and that's how you actually have to go develop technology, right? You want an answer perhaps that, tell me one thing that, forever and ever and ever, I can turn my brain off and never think about it. It is always a race. You have to always create other things. But don't discount the fact how hard it is to build a good business. Companies have created technology for a long period of time, and they're gone because they never thought about building a good business. So yeah, you said more or less. I would say it's more than less. It is not that simple. You have to get people to trust you. That is not trivial. That's not trivial, actually. So yeah, why are we so direct and honest, just not with you, but with the customers? Because they have to trust us. That when we say we're going to deliver something, it's not just that our tech will deliver, that we're going to deliver a business that is going to be around to support you. These are things that are not trivial, right? So I know, like, listen, I'm an engineer, we could all geek out about it all the time, but at some point, we have to stop and say, okay, we are going to do great things, the team's going to do great things, they're going to invent awesome things, but if you don't build a business, think about IBM. You think the IBM guys, they were not surprised by the insolvency? And they were like harshly affected by that? It's a personal thing. We almost went insolvent as a company, so I know exactly how they feel, right? But if there was a successful business, everything they've created could have been monetized, but that never happened. And they were looking at the abyss, right? So if you think about it, where both the companies fail and a joint company has to succeed, is a successful business, and that is not trivial. Now, trust me, sit back, put aside whatever your ego is and think about it. Getting somebody to trust you, it's not based on the specs that I can give you. I can talk about that all day. I can tell you what the next thing we have to build. But right now, for the company to be sustainable, you have to really build trust with everybody saying, we're predictable, we're going to be around, we're going to give you the best technology at the best price, and we're not going to disappoint. So that's how you think about it, right? So I'm going back to, I'm being so harsh about that is because it is that important, actually. I mean, like this whole event is, so people understand that this is now really about, not just a proxy question, really building a business is even more effort than technology, because we've already done a lot of technology development. We are way ahead of everybody, and we'll be even further ahead as we keep investing. But we're going to falter if we just focus on that.
Okay, thank you.
John Nelson again. We heard it said that innovation is realizing that what your customers are going to need before they realize it. And my question is, you talk about your guys, you're an engineering guy, to get that. What do you do to foster within Microvision an atmosphere where there's a sense of recognition and reward around people realizing these things and being able to integrate features into your design that are going to ultimately be differentiators, or as one marketeer put it, delighters?
I think the DNA of the company will always be great engineers, deciding what they can create and, looking out there. That has not changed. I think, we will mature as a business. We're going to have, more conventional business things to create. But the DNA of the company, the combined company, is the same, which is actually engineering-led. A lot of the things that you have right now, nobody gave us a spec. These guys were working on this years in advance, well before any product was needed, right? That cannot change. Certainly, it will not change as long as I'm CEO. That's important because that's what's fueled this company to get where it is. And the only way you think about winning a big section of a segment is to keep doing that. While in the background, you work extra hard, double time it, and build out the business as well. So you're there, right? So you get everybody. But the investment in new R&D, the new things that are there, nothing has changed. And we incentivize our team, our engineering team as well, with with the shares and things that, that they have to be part of the story. And I think all of you guys should be, and I hope you are, but you should be very happy about that because these guys are creating amazing things for you. They should have an incentive to make it even better. Align management's compensation, but also employee compensation to long-term shareholder value. So we've done everything possible in the last 3 years, not just build technology, but also try to build the fundamentals that the employees see a reason that long-term their value creation has an effect that they could also enjoy. And that's how we keep. That's how you keep ahead of everybody, right? Just be the fastest gazelle on the savannah, right? You're not gonna be able to do it by forcing features all the time. These guys are going to come up with stuff that nobody's even thought of. You just have to let them work at what they're doing. Okay.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we are able to attract talent from the big tech. Obviously, this market, as you can imagine, the people who work here are really passionate about creating something that is really valuable. Because obviously, big tech can throw around money, but the testament that these people are really passionate and devoted to the cause, I think tells the story itself.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that there's no substitute for that within an organization. So thank you both.
we're engineering driven. I think I would be lying if I said we're anything else, and we're always going to have great engineers. And when you think about Microvision, we've had lots and ups and downs. You know, if any of you guys have been around for 20 years, you know, a lot of great people have left. You know, we miss them, but you know, the company always found engineers that will take up and take it to a next level of height, right? So,
May I ask a question?
Sure.
This is for Drew. I know you're not mic'd up. I'm sorry. Two things. Do you have strategies for protecting our IP? And secondly, I think if you look historically at our company, do you have strategies for making our contracts more desirable going forward? Thank you.
Toughest question goes to Drew.
Absolutely, we have both of those things. So we have, is this working? Do you hear me? So we have an in-house patent counsel. He has been with the company for about 17 years now, I believe. And he knows this technology inside and out. He actually is an engineer, but for us, he's a patent lawyer. This company, as you can see from its history, has a very strong process for protecting its patent portfolio. So we take that very seriously. IBEO did as well. And so combining our patent portfolios has been pretty straightforward. So we feel very confident in the protection of our intellectual property. On the contract side, I can't speak for historical contracts at Microvision, but yes, going forward, again, we have a strong internal legal team, and we make good use of outside counsel as and where needed. So obviously it's what I live and breathe every day. So we're very focused on it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
My name's Matt Pence. I had a question going back to talking about AR and VR. I initially invested in the company. I'm a gamer. It's kind of the technology that I know. Now that we understand that Microsoft is making HoloLens and it has Microvision parts in it, is there a reason, like at this investor day, like we couldn't show off that technology to better, I don't know how to say this, the base that doesn't necessarily know a whole lot about like automotive, for example, versus video game technology in the future of that, like even just speaking to it would maybe give more confidence.
I'll speak to it, right? But there's a very specific reason you're not seeing that. Because it's consistent with, like, you know, we're authentic people, authentic company. Clearly said since I took over that that's not we're investing in at all. And it's not because I don't have a love for it, it's because it's not the right time to run a business around it. You know, I think, you know, there could be a personal reason why that people think that, oh, you know, Sumit won't even say the word AR. That's total. I've worked longer in that, and I have more passion for that than any of you can even imagine. But I know more about that you don't know. And I will tell you what you don't know, okay? It's not the fact that, like, you and I may be passionate about it and we're willing to take our glasses off and put it on. But what you always find, people will use it, but then they'll put it down after 30 days and not use it again, right? I just don't want it here because it dilutes what we're doing. We're spending your money with this, not on that. That's a hobby that I can have it at my home. Somebody can have it. We can talk about it, you know, over a glass of water. But that, you know, that's about it. But the business that we're running, that we're spending our money on, is this, right? So that's the reason why it's not here. There's no other secret thing, and you know, it's not a matter of that I don't have a passion for that that vertical. I'm pretty sure that I can argue about how much more passionate I'm about than anybody else. Okay, I cut my teeth on that one. I worked for Mark Spitzer on his company when we had no money, when you know everything was like dying, and I just kept working at it. So I know more about that, and I'm passionate about that. But it's not the right time. I just keep saying that. People are not accepting it, and Alex will, you know, probably give me a hard time about this, but you just have to accept it. It's just the market's not ready for that yet. That's a fact.
Thank you.
Great. I think we've got time for one more question. If there's somebody who hasn't had a chance to speak yet, so we'll go there, and then I think we're going to
do two more. We'll do two more back here. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I know he asked. This is for Anubhav. The guidance that you gave of 12 to 15, right? Is that correct? Yeah. So what percent of that would you say, if any, could be from additional acquisition versus organic revenue growth?
Oh, so this 10 to 15 is really coming from, when we announced this acquisition, this is coming from the product portfolio that we have. So this is the product portfolio we got, the breadth of things that you see today.
Okay. And so, okay, perfect, thanks.
Can I ask real quick? On that 12 to 15 range, you mentioned NRE. Is that factored into that 12 to 15, or does that possibly add to the top line?
That's a great question. The reason why the revenue and that is a bit different because NRE, and sorry, I don't want to get too technical, but there is a difference between what you can recognize as revenue versus what NRE is, because technically on the books is what you can show as revenue because there are ASC 606 requirements or performance obligations. When those obligations are met, doesn't mean even if the company receives cash, the US GAAP doesn't allow you to recognize that as revenue, right? So that's why I think I wanted to be, clear that there are different factors or drivers that drive what gets booked as revenue. So I wanted to make sure that these are the different streams that the company had or different tools that we will use to put this revenue on the books.
There's a last question.
Thank you. I'm Kate O'Neill. I wanted to more make a comment and just to say thank you for having us here today. Thanks for the test drive. It was tremendous to witness it and experience it. And I think we are all realizing that this technology is going to change our lives, especially as we age and grow.
Mike, you were looking at you. I don't know, maybe there's an Easter egg about that.
So that's it more than, you've all asked great questions. I've learned so much today and really thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you to Sumit and Anubhav for enduring 3 hours of intense, grueling questions. So thank you guys. Thank you all for coming today. Do you want to wrap it up, Anubhav?
Yeah. So again, I really thank all of you for coming here and really witnessing what we have created. I think this company has really transformed into something that I think we all can be very proud of. The team of engineers, the spirit, most importantly, and I think the passion, because I think the combination of all these elements are really the key to success. And I'm just going to repeat the same thing that I said. Rome wasn't built in a day, and obviously as we build this business brick by brick, that's what the foundation is based on. This is a traditional public company, and we just want to continue that DNA to show and create a business which is going to be valued on fundamentals and the true foundation of the technology and what can be created around it. So thank you all for coming to this event and making this a big success. Yep.
I just want to say that it means a lot to us. Like these guys work very hard, all of us work very hard. So the attention we get, these kind of events, I think I can tell you from the employee standpoint, they love it. So we want to thank you for that. And I know a lot of you traveled really far away to come here, and that personally means a lot to me. So thank you for that. And if you get a chance, congratulate Anubhav. Today is his birthday. The whole event, was organized because I was traveling, so I really want to thank him and the entire team. Our team, worked very hard to get this experience created for you. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.